Wait, hold on.
I was going to do a
Hello and welcome.
Now, hold on. Who? Kurt was doing the countdown.
Yeah.
Just then.
Hello and
I
welcome.
realized, am I host? Everybody's sick. I hosted the last one, didn't I?
Everyone is very sick. I was assuming that I was hosting, but I guess we hadn't discussed it, so we can do whatever. We can do a loosey-goosey style if you want, Brennan.
No, we just everybody just starts talking at the same time.
Yeah.
Is the lone.
Hello
Hello and welcome to Plat Chat, episode 194.
We're finally getting ready to start the show.
I'm Achilles. I've got Sideshow, Bren, and Sliggy with me.
We really just
You've actually been postured so hard, Brent. You've just given up your hosting duties instantly.
I'm very close to giving up in almost every faculty of my life.
Yeah,
it's fine.
especially today.
You should do it because even though you're sick, I've been at a bar, so you take it.
I'm not sick. I'm not sick right now.
Really?
I just haven't been outside in 7 days, so I'm like currently going through what like a little shit boy would do if he was underneath the holds and didn't have access to lemons. I'm like, there's scurvy in the air in this apartment.
You know, you don't get scurvy from not going outside. You know, you're allowed to buy fruit and vegetables and eat them. Like even if you stay indoors, you're allowed to eat.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, you got to get vitamin D and you got to get some sun. You know what I mean?
Scurvy's caused by vitamin C, man. You're going to develop rickets.
I know. Well, scurvy's one thing, but the vitamin D was another. I was building a story, a narrative. You know what I mean?
Right. You're going to come out just a shell of
Get
it.
a bottle of lemon juice and every now and then just squirt it directly into your gob and you'll be fine.
Well, our question today, we got a member question, but I've got a question for everybody, and it is: did the Roman Empire realize they were living in the downfall of it during the time? And if we could have some reflections onto the modern era with that. I mean, it's 10 marks. Make sure you write up the essay in the chat, and I'll grade it later. But for now, we did get asked a member question in the members only Discord, and you can become a member as well. If you do, you get access to the Discord. You get bonus content, forbidden footage, the nudes that Josh put out. They're somewhere there, locked behind a Google Drive.
Leaked hog.
Quality on the camera.
Leaked hog.
Nutty.
You get early access to the content if we do put out early access content and badge and emote. But the member question was, I'm pulling it up. It feels like this year, this is from 7, by the way, as well. I will say their name. It feels like this year there are clear-cut top contenders in each region, but each year we see teams defy expectations and become championship rosters out of seemingly nowhere, e.g. Gen.G, Heretics. What is your sleeper team to watch out for? I'll start with this one, I guess. Kurt, how do you want to reveal this one?
We could probably do them all at the same time, just for the reaction.
Can I start though by attacking the premise? Are there top teams are there top contenders easily defined this year compared to previous years? I don't think it's any different. Like, I don't think there's clear contenders this year in some regions.
I would say there's more contenders, right? I feel like there's like this is the year where there's most people that could probably win champs or masters.
An abundance of.
Yeah, trying to find the poo team in Americas. There's no poo.
So. What are you saying? There's no poo.
Where's the poo in America?
I have to tread very carefully here because we're not over 5 minutes. But good God, there is poo.
Show me the poo.
You can. It's on the bottom of your shoes, Wilkinson. The poo exists. It's there. It's constantly being produced. It's a normal body thing that happens, but it's there.
I don't see it.
Just look at the bottom of the stands. There's so many trash teams in every region. To be fair,
oh my god,
I think like
we haven't even started.
There's plenty of teams throughout this last year.
Last year, but I think a lot of the poo has been scraped up and replaced with at least mud. And
there's still
a bit better.
Probably some poo.
It's
forever there.
We'll see. Let's reveal the teams.
The particles are in the air. Every time you flush the toilet and you think you got rid of it, the particles are there.
I want to see our sleeper picks for this one because there are accusations that are flying out. So, I mean...
That's awesome.
Ooh, 4 different options. 4 different choices. So, audio listeners, I went with loud, and it's not just it's not some me trying to play the Brazilian audience once more. This is
he likes loud now that Aspas is gone.
Into the country.
Yeah, no, it's
please let me come back, please.
I rate Digizine. I rate STK as a coach. I always have.
You rate Digizine higher than Aspas?
Probably not.
Right, okay.
But
And
I
he
just
rated
like to get this
Xbox-
kind of stuff on
Xbox
tape.
really low, so like that's
Right.
impressive.
Okay, all right, buddy. I mean, Sliggy, you've gone with the new Korean Ascension team, SPG. I don't know what is their name again.
Impressive.
Saint
Simpress.
Paris Jaman.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely nailed it. Yeah, Simpress Gaming. Dude, as long as the meta doesn't change and Neon doesn't get nerfed, they should they should be good to be a sleeper team.
Of course. That won't be a large topic
Yeah.
of discussion later on.
Very much so. I like your one. I like Giants though. I like that as a pick. That's a good
Because
one.
I like
I
that
was
one,
thinking, like, okay, let me pick an America's team, and then I was like, I can't pick one America's team. If we're only limited to one sleeper pick, I feel like Giants is a good one from EMEA because they're like, I think they're a really, really boring organization that has very few fans. So it's not like people are out there rattling the gates with like, oh, we're gonna be good, we're gonna be good. It's like one guy in a Giants jersey ordering from Burger King, like, well, maybe we'll
I
be
eat this
all right,
every
guys.
day. I love you guys.
Yeah, but I think they've got a decent team going on, and I think especially the quality of the team is extremely good, and if the calling can be really good from Cloud is IGLing for them, right? So if that can be really strong as well, they might end up having a squad that can do some damage, and maybe even crack, like in a best case scenario, they might crack an international event, which I think would be way unexpected.
Dude,
compared
if
to
they do
most
that with
people's.
3 players, it's insane.
Yeah, as an
Like, this-
they haven't
it's
fully announced, right?
absolutely levels that
No.
we've never seen before. I'm glad that Kurt pulled that up because, as you mentioned, Giants you consider to be a little bit of a boring organization. I consider myself to be pretty in the know, and I follow things and whatnot as they come out. Couldn't remember for a second who had been signed for Giants this year. So I'm glad that we got the VLR page because I'm like, oh yeah, it actually is some good signings.
I mean, Giants is Westside, Runner, Cloud, Purpo, and Tomaji, I believe. I think I've got that correct. So that's the 5 players. I think they've got a really solid roster there in terms of like talent on the roster. It's are they going to be able to put it together? Is the calling all going to look good? I don't know. But I mean, if all of those were solved questions anyway, they wouldn't be a sleeper team, would they? People would be wakage.
Yeah, very much so. This was a hard one because there's a lot of teams that you could do, and it's also like your judgment on it. Like I was tempted to put K Corp in here, but it's like, is that even a sleeper team?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I went more for this because I feel
With
like they could
Sadak and Eng.
be good. Yeah,
like-
exactly.
I went
Wait,
for
no.
DRX.
Yeah, DRX.
Not even for the meme. Not even for the meme.
Now
like,
you did get told 30 seconds before we went live, Seth, what's your sleeper pick?
I had this in mind though. Like
Oh,
I
you
mean, I
did?
was looking at the document. I saw the run of show.
was mulling
while I
it
was
over?
in my taxi home. Yeah, and like Simpress is one that like kind of crossed my mind initially, but I actually didn't even consider them that much of a sleeper pick compared to the new DRX, just because DRX is coming in with so many new faces that are completely unproven. So I feel like if these players are able to be whipped into shape and DRX continues to at least go to where they have gone in the past with like a top 6 finish, I think that that's really, really good. Whereas I actually have somewhat higher expectations for Simprissa off the rip, barring Neon changes, just because they look so good.
Yeah, I was just kind of banking on the fact that people would think it's an Ascension team and not expect too much. It's like one of those, if you haven't watched them, you'll be like, oh, they can't be too good. But they're actually like pretty legit. I do know that TMV definitely would have picked Wolves if he was here. And the Wolves team are actually not too bad.
Wolves win.
Yeah.
Actual Wolves win moment.
Is SPG the only Ascension team, though, that's expected to do much this year? Because the others have all been kind of picked to pieces. Like Apex has been devastated. The Chinese Ascension team's been devastated. Crystal's just been plucked out of there. Kayak's been plucked out of Apex. Boom. I mean, I maybe.
We do have a second Ascension team in Pacific to
two.
consider.
Yeah, they got
So
the 2 shots at it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're more likely. But 2G also, they can't play with Spike, right? Because he only turns 18 in June. I don't even know what they're doing about that, by the way. Has that been announced? And I didn't see.
They I think the rumors are, and someone can correct me in chat, maybe it's QCK is like stand-in for a bit, or they were like at least trialing him, something like that.
Right.
So I think
I mean,
that's
that
like
role
their
would
plan.
fit. Okay, so maybe they're expected to do something, but I think America's.
I think America's is so stacked. Yeah, I think
I think
SBG are expected to do
Sinfroza
the
has the
best.
highest expectations on them, I think, out
Yeah.
of all of them by far. And then Boom is expected to at least be probably like a middling.
I feel like Boom are just here for a good time, not for a long time, man.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
look at all of their social and like the players' reactions, they're just like
You've met Gary then, the owner
like-
of the team.
the meme of the guy dancing in with the coffin. Is like they're just vibing, dude. I wish them the best.
Yeah.
I can't talk to any specifics, but nothing had been solidified at the time of Ascension, but I do know that like there was some thoughts that maybe they were going to end up getting in anyway, because of the bleed investigation. And when they lost, the owner was devastated, and people were just like, I'm so sorry for you. That really sucks. But like fully knowing like there's a decent opportunity that Boom just gets invited into the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah. They've been having fun with it. There's another team that's been having fun with it. Are they having fun with it? I don't know. I'm just trying to I'm trying to think of a transition for this. Global Esports, they're a team.
Are we talking about global esports? Indian fans rejoice all around the
Wait,
world.
actually speaking about
Hello,
GE,
India.
Thoughts on this? Will they qualify for a VCT event? They announced their whole roster, whole thing, whole shebang. You already mentioned that Crystal got plucked out of Ascension. I mean, he's on the team.
But he's not calling.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
If this opens him up as a fragger, I think that that's totally fine. Like, if he's
Already
just doing
was, I
side
think.
calling stuff and then
Yeah.
is just going to be pounding like he typically does anyway, then that seems great for them. But I could see this being one of those things where it's like, you know, maybe it's a little bit of a rough start to the season or something if it does occur. And then it's just like, okay, Crystal, actually, you're going to call. And then maybe there's a resurgence if it comes down to that. But I don't know. When this roster was presented to me in my chat when I was streaming whatever tournament it was, of Red Bull, I was looking at it, I was like, I really don't know what this does.
What the hell are we watching?
What is going on
What
in this
video have you
video?
even found here? This is that Pokemon Unite.
I may have.
I was so confused. I was looking at the bottom corner and I'm like, I don't recognize these
So,
faces.
did we-
It says Nintendo in the corner.
We didn't want to talk about this.
Notice either.
We didn't want to talk about this roster.
No, you're
All
right,
right,
Kurt.
fine.
We are going to discuss
I thought this was the
we are.
roster. They're gonna
Oh.
win. It's all 5 of them.
I mean, how do we think they're going to go? Clearly, they've done well in the past, so it seems like they're going to be a juggernaut going into the 2025 season. They have all of those big checks and a trophy.
Do they have a video?
No, they
Yeah,
do.
they-
It's
got
like
2 of
6
them,
minutes long, but it is there, and
Yeah.
I assume it's on their YouTube, but it was on Twitter. It's kind of like the magician's thing. They did some nice editing where like the magician like pulls a card and he's like, this is the king of the roster, or whatever, and it like fades into like a drawing of the player's face on a playing card and that kind of stuff. That after I saw that video, I didn't think it was good. I'll continue with my arc of judging.
Yeah.
Just
roster
you
apps
hate
and videos.
every announcement that any team does.
It
yeah.
could have been better. Honestly, I think the Linkin Park, it didn't work for me that well. But it was overall, it was a pretty good video, I suppose. But I like the bar that they filmed it in. This is Whale Pub in Sangsu. But
He's giving Google reviews of the pub
Yeah,
rather than
it's
talking about the
crazy.
roster.
But-
Indian
but
fans are here salivating,
after-
waiting to hear one of their Pacific casters announce whether or not he likes the roster, and you're like, well, the pub's all right.
after seeing the video, I think that I started kind of seeing the total vision of the roster, and I do kind of like it. I think it's a roster that can do damage. Do I think this is a roster that's going to go to internationals? No, I do not.
Did they hire David Blaine for this?
Yes, that's what he looks like now.
Wise let himself go a little, I think, in terms
Who
of
is
his,
this? They just hired a magician?
It's not David Blaine.
It's not, I don't know.
No idea.
It's not David Blaine, mate. I
No,
can
but
tell
where
you
do you
that.
even hire a magician for a video in Korea?
I feel like
I mean, you've chatted
magicians
with.
are super hireable. What do you think? Magicians don't refuse to work.
Yeah,
In
that's
fact,
not even they're
I
looking
think
for it.
magicians are exclusively hireable.
Exactly.
Because
They
constantly
they
need
specifically
jobs.
work events like this. They're like
where would you
children's
even
parties
find-
and videos. What else?
Where would you even find
for?
somebody willing to do magic? On
Man's
it?
never heard of the internet before. What's going on?
You
feel like
could
this
probably go to
would
like
be-
magiccastle.kr
No,
and
but
like
what are you
find a
gonna do, fly
magician
someone
for
out from
hire.
fucking LA from the Magic Castle? Look, he's got a card app open.
I don't know.
Anyone could.
I don't know where they
download
got him
that.
from.
Yeah, that's what I'm
He's-
saying. I don't know. It's just
His-
where would you find this guy?
Having watched it, his sleight of hand, it's okay. There's some moments where you can see the trick, but it's not the greatest sleight of hand. You wouldn't get past Penn and Teller. He would not last long on Fool Us.
Holy shit! I'm gonna give you 1 minute on the roster. I swear to God, because if nobody else is, then
I already
I'm gonna
said what I already said what I thought. I already said like this is a team
I'm
that's
getting
pretty good
shocked,
that
too.
can do some damage, but probably won't make it to an international.
I think that, okay, starting from the coach that's been brought in, right? They've got a better coach than they've ever had in terms of having proven success and more experience. No hate to the prior coaches on GE. They had a really tough job to do, trying to balance the goals of the organization, which is to try to represent some level of like South Asian, specifically Indian talent, and then try to do something that actually benefits the fans in terms of like bringing home some wins and respectable results. That's tough, but they didn't really manage it in previous years. Juvenal's got more experience, wants to be a head coach, worked with Leviathan, was crucial to them improving after they got rid of Goked as well, went on the run towards top 4 of champions, got a ton of experience and has a vision of what he wants to do with the roster and is apparently pretty happy with the people that he's got together. They're also, I mean, I don't know what the scouting looked like for this kind of thing, and I'm not the world's foremost expert on the Philippine scene, which appears to be where, you know, the majority of these players have come from, but I just looked at the Philippines split 2 that happened recently, sort by rating. All 3 of these players are at the top. So like, I don't know whether that was just, you know, where part of the search began, and it just, these guys continued to perform really well as a team together, because they weren't together. This isn't a pre-existing core, but they all played in the same like circuit. Kelly S is going to be the IGL. Juvenal's talked about the fact that he likes the like slightly micromanagey style that Kelly S has. You know, a bit more, if you're not familiar with some IGLs, a bit more like the Boaster style of calling, where he's trying to, you know, work his pieces around the map rather than it being a decentralized system. It is a bit weird that they've got Crystal, but Crystal deserved to be on a top level team and actually won Ascension anyway, so would have been in a tier 1 squad, but now is in Korea instead of in Shanghai, I suppose, where they do the Chinese tournament. So yeah, they look like they've got some fraggers on this team. I don't know too much about Udatan. I haven't watched him, but he was also playing in China and just missed out on Chinese Ascension. I think Juvenile had some specifically good things to say about him as well. But they seem like they've got some set roles here, some big fraggers, and I believe in this team more than any team that they've put together before. And I think that they don't need. Maybe I'm off the beat here. I'm not speaking for the Indian scene, obviously, but I don't think you need Indian representation on the team. I think at this point, the fans want a roster that's going to do something. I think what pissed off the fans before was, if you're going to have a roster that doesn't do anything, why not have some Indian representation on the team? This roster, I think, is designed to make playoffs. I'm looking at this and thinking, you're trying to make playoffs at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I don't think that's anything to disagree with. I'm just curious if that happens, just because it's looking more stacked than it ever has, and this is something that Sliggy and I have been chatting about. Is like going into 2025. I mean, as things often do, like year over year, it's just going to be increasingly competitive. And if you are already kind of behind the bell curve the year before, like the catch up becomes that much more difficult to achieve. But if this roster can do it, if they can come together and like the synergy is there with these players, like I rate a lot of these players incredibly well. Like they did an open trials system and went through, and you know, I can't even imagine how many players they went through to kind of come down to this roster. But this is what they've kind of assessed is the best of the best that they could get. And like Yurutan is somebody who's been around the block for a very long time in Korea. He was playing back in 2021, I believe, but at least in 2022. Then go Prince, then moved over to Gwangju Shadow for a little bit. He was on Howlin, I think. Like he's been around for a very long time, and this is one of the names that like really jumped out at me. Is I was like, oh shit, like okay, we've got Yotan in tier 1. That seems pretty cool just to see an older kind of like Korean player who never really was on a strong roster kind of make it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I see the individual pieces, and I think that there's a ton of talent on this team. I just need to see it like really mesh, and until they play into a tournament, which I don't think GE is slated to play in any off-season stuff at the moment. But until I see them,
no.
I like maybe if like Convergence comes back around, they play there, but I have no idea what's going on. But if that comes back around, maybe they compete in Convergence. Otherwise, I have nothing to watch until the season starts.
The reason that I'm saying that I'm feeling like they could fight for playoffs is because I agree with you that it's fairly stacked, like in terms of competition this year. But I don't see this roster as being objectively worse or having a worse chance than like the bottom 4 or 5 teams. Of course, that means it's a bit of a crapshoot. Like whoever ends up performing better out of those 4 or 5 teams is going to make it. I'm not saying the global is, but I think they've got a good a chance of as any compared to like DFM, RRQ, Boom, these kind of rosters of being able to overtake those and be able to, try to sneak into a playoff spot towards the end of the year.
It seems like
that there's
it's
a
just
show
loads
match
of,
for GE.
There's a show match? Okay.
People are saying that there's a show match this month, and apparently Convergence is canceled. So they're running their own event on the 18th of November, is what chat's telling me.
All right.
Okay. I mean, that'll be fun to watch, and that'll answer a lot of questions, because I get asked this question the most, to be honest, in my chat, like, what do you think of the GE roster? And it's hard to just turn around and go, like, I don't really know. But I don't really know. It's like loads of tier 2 players that put up really good stats, and can they do it in the hardest version of tier 1 that we've had so far? And there's a good chance that they actually can, and they kind of upset. And it's a lot of what Sideshow was saying, like, how do they mesh together? And I don't know. I agree. I think like a playoffs, like if you were gonna judge them now, like a 5th, 6th with like upset potential is doable. I was tempted for the member question to put them in there, because I was like, actually, like if everything went right and these kind of tier 2 players performed similar to how we've seen like Madder and Verno perform, like where it doesn't seem like there's much of a difference between a lot of the top 2 tier 2 teams and tier 1, then they should actually have a pretty good go at it. So I agree. I'm on board, and this is the most hope I've had for just this org as a team. I think this is the best they've built, like from the get go.
The tough thing is,
I'm curious. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say the tough thing is at the moment, even though I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. At the moment, if I had to power rank the teams, knowing very little because we haven't seen very much data, I think I'd put them at like 9th, something like that. So they'd have to maybe a bit overperform my expectations, of which, I could be vastly wrong. But the idea that it's the best global esports roster, the one with the most potential, let's say maybe, and yet their fan base could still have the same situation again, where they're playing actually quite decent Valorant maybe, and they're hitting some better shots than they ever were, and maybe they would have beaten the piss out of the previous esports global esports rosters, but that might not necessarily translate into on paper success or them going somewhere. Right. And I think that would just create again further frustration.
Close losses don't translate into wins, obviously. So like, it could end up being like this is a much more competitive roster, but it's still not delivering on the front that the fans want to see. My main thing is like I'm familiar with a lot of the players, but I'm really curious to see how they look in the current meta. Just assuming that Neon is going to continue to be centric, because my experience.
Why do we think that Neon's not going to get nerfed?
I mean,
last time
because nothing's happened yet.
You want to talk this shit now?
Historically, it's taken them years.
We can get into a bit, but like my main thing is just like, what do they look like now? I'll admit I'm not the most familiar with a lot of these players in current meta, with Neon being at the forefront. So I'm very curious how their strategies and like just duelist play looks in that meta, assuming that is going to be the thing that continues onward into the start of the year.
I mean, this entire roster's talent is like, can you develop the team? Can you develop the roster? That's how I see it with Juvenile. Do I have faith in Juvenile to be able to do that and make it work? Because I don't know the players either. But yeah, I mean, best of luck to them. I think I agree with the overall consensus that this looks like the best put together G roster in quite some time. Let's move on. Let's talk about EMEA. Let's talk about FNATIC as well, which I don't know. We haven't talked about FNATIC in a while, to be honest, but they haven't really been making too many changes. We were just kind of speculating about when Durka was leaving, if he would leave in the end, or if they would continue with him, I guess is more apt. But Kajak, how do you pronounce this guy's name?
Kayak.
Kayak.
Yeah, Kayak, the Apex duelist. I mean, pretty good pickup to slot right in. And we don't know if Leo's going to be playing, right? I know there was something about them talking about.
They're saying that he will, and he's like prepping to rejoin. But if you have a reason to have been out for this length of time, I'm sure they'd like him to be back. But I mean, the idea that we can sit here and say like, oh, they've told us he will be back, and so he will be back. I got to imagine there's a little bit more uncertainty than that to it. And even if he was, whether or not he'd be able to stay, they're keeping it very shrouded in mystery at the moment. So that's how it is.
They picked up Sayonara for the off season, right? Just so that they could play with him, so that Leo can sit out for some of them. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't think Leo's going to play any off season events.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a crazy good stand in this. This kid's like part of the next generation, so that's pretty cool for him to get an opportunity like this as well. And
he's 16.
From what I've heard, I thought the Leo was doing the trial process when they were trialing like duelists,
right?
And then maybe I don't know if they're just practicing with Sayonara now and he's still just having time off. We don't really know. Yeah,
Alpha's looking like a bit of a unit in his picture. Can we get a zoom in on that? He's like,
we need wide alpha happy.
He's looking kind of yoked. I'm not gonna lie, like he's looking.
Did you forget that he was like an amateur about to
I
be a pro basketball player?
I didn't forget. It's just
this guy would tear you up, cross you up. You'd be breaking ankles. He'd be fucking barging into you. You'd be trying to call, oh please, oh he's fouled me again.
We've all seen the basketball footage. We've all seen the basketball footage. I'll always have faith in FNATIC, I think, as long as they maintain some iteration of this core that they've got in terms of like Boaster, Alpha, Chronicle, still keeping with that. Because they I don't know, they've the amount of experience they've got, we know the caliber of their players already. And I think they've almost got a proven track record of them bringing in Hero quite last minute and making him adjust really well to the roster. That makes me quite happy to see them bringing in players. And it's not like Kai needs development. He's had God knows how much playtime. I mean, ended up winning Ascension, right? So, but yeah, I think even if you chop and change one or two parts of FNATIC, the roster will still have enough positives for me to expect them to go far and go deep.
Yeah, I also think a good thing that is worth mentioning is like Astra is really strong right now. And I would say that Boaster's in the top 3. People would probably argue top 1, to be honest, in terms of Astras. So I think that's like a really... Yeah, globally. Like if you look at just util usage...
He is incredible.
Yeah,
he really is incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not shooting back the same way that some of the other Astras are, but he's like util usage, I think, is second to none.
Yeah, I agree.
Charon.
I mean, yeah, that's why I said top 3, because obviously Karen's out fragging heavy. But then you got to also look at like when you look back at Zoms, like that guy couldn't really shoot, man, but his Astra util was incredible. So it's
incredible disrespect to be thrown towards
the
greatest top-down MOBA player of our time.
He did. I mean, he did incredible. He had the best Astra, and then you kind of had Boaster, but I feel like Boaster's kind of caught up a little bit.
Yeah, so he's very good.
So yeah, it's I think it's a good meta for them to cook, and I think Astra's in a really strong position. And I felt like last year they didn't really cook up the right stuff. I felt like it felt like they were behind on a few things, especially when you like look at their icebox and stuff. It felt like a lot of their ideas fell short. I think Astra coming back in, this is more where Boaster had the good ideas. This is where they kind of had the combos of like this into this, of like camera contact into Astra Star from a stun, etc., Sage slow, whatever. Like they always had like really good combos and like really good thought process majority of the time around the Astra. So I feel like this meta should suit them, and even if there is like a neon change or whatever, which we'll get onto it at one point, I think that this team will kind of be fine with that, because I can't see the Astra getting touched for a little bit. Astra will stay like this for a while.
I could name another Astra player
Yeah.
Go on.
that we maybe can be excited about. Sugar Zero.
Yeah. Sugar Zero is
Like,
great.
Guy was kind of cooking at the end of this season, and he was looking like maybe the most consistent player on Zeta. Now they've, for now, upgraded their roster significantly. He could be another one to watch.
Yeah.
So,
Is he joining Fnatic?
Who knows?
No, I don't think he's joining Fnatic.
Don't
they're
give
gonna
a- don't give
they're
a
gonna
sh-
get 5 Astra players on their team.
Don't
Karen,
give a shit
Boaster.
about any team that isn't Pacific, but Sugar
I think
Zero.
I think one of the
Let's go.
problems with Fnatic this year, the slow beginning that you're talking about, Sliggy, reading between the lines of what they were saying to each other at the start of the year and like in interviews and stuff, I think that they came into 2024 without the same level of hunger to be ahead right when the season began that a lot of other teams did. A lot of other teams started pracking proper in October, which, I mean,
Yeah.
for reference, we are now in November. So, you know, if you started right now to prep for the 2025 season, you'd be actually quite a bit further behind than last year's teams because the season also starts earlier, right? So not only did a lot of these teams have like big run-up times into the season, serious prac, but they were also mad hungry. And so I think that's going to be a big shift for Fnatic as well, is getting that hunger. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why they let go of Durka, because for the love of God, I cannot understand why you would do that unless it's something to do with the, like, you know, interpersonal dynamic within the team. Not that they dislike each other, but that maybe they had some struggle getting him going at the start of the season in the same way. They've talked a little bit, I think you said it, Sliggy, as well, about the idea of like paying the guys' salaries based on their 2023 performance and not actually meeting up to that in 2024. But the idea that they would get rid of him when presumably they've also moved a lot of Leo's salary off the books as well, because he's been moved to a reserve roster position. You're not going to be paying him the full amount. It seems odd to me that you'd let go of a guy that genuinely, if we were making like greatest of all time, matching every year, you know, weighing the entirety of Valorant, Durka's got to be in the contest for like one of the top spots just based on his longevity and always being there at big events, always putting up big performances. So It is odd. It's not that Kayak's a bad replacement. It's just, I still haven't got a proper answer on why they even let Durka go.
Yeah, and that even makes me think even more that it's money, right? Because otherwise you'd be pretty open about it in terms of like differences between the team, motivation. I did think you touched on a pretty good point. You can tell when Fnatic haven't been practicing for a while, or when they take a little break. So like what you said at the beginning of this year, they were like late and it kind of looked a little bit not together. I think I saw the same thing at Champs 2023, where I could tell that they didn't spend all their time. Like it was when Last Chance Qualify was a thing. I'm pretty sure they definitely took like a bigger break during that time instead of like actually straight up pracking, because they didn't bring anything new. And Fnatic's always the team that I'm like super excited to see something new that's well thought up. And I felt like beginning of the year, this year I didn't have that, and I felt like at Champs 2023 I didn't have that as well. So I am hoping that they kind of learn from that. That they're like best when they have a bit of time behind them and they've actually like practiced a little bit. So I thought you touched on a pretty good point there. But in terms of the Durka stuff, I don't know. I don't think we're ever gonna properly find out why.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm still looking forward to watching Fnatic, I think, play next year.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, they should still be up there, but
I mean, I think it's similar to Loud, where it's like even if they don't have Aspas and stuff, like you're still just like what is the team capable of, because they're storied at this point. Like I want to see how this continues. Like
Yeah,
I think
Fnatic also still has like a solid
well.
foundation. So
they can still definitely win stuff and should be aiming for that.
all right, let's move on. Let's talk about some of the North American events that happened. I mean, the one North American event, the big one, the SEN City Classic. I'm glad I watched the VODs for this one, man. Yeah, there was a three match days of best of threes. Is like,
you gonna watch it live?
dude. Huh?
You gonna watch it live? I watched a lot of this live.
No, I could have watched it live, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like
Playing
you need like
Minecraft.
to have like, you have to have Wordle on deck, New York Times on deck. You got to have like 20 tabs open ready for when like the delays happen. But it was a pretty cool tournament watching it back, at least retroactively for the VODs. because I don't know. A lot of people were complaining about a lack of casting overall, I suppose, for it, saying that was like one of the major things that they would that people would enjoy more, which I can understand the vibe of, but I loved the amount of listenings they were doing to the teams. I loved the amount of listenings we were doing. It was awesome. I was just watching the games, and every single time I would just absolutely. I mean, I just stopped yapping on my stream, and because it's insight that you very rarely get, to be honest, in general. But it was a very fun event, and a lot of parity between all the teams as well, to a degree. Like it was quite competitive between them. I know that Cloud9 kind of got blown out, but I guess we'll start with NRG because they ended up winning the whole event. We started right off the top. I know Sliggy, you pulled up clips as well that you wanted to talk about, but they look so damn impressive for a team with 2 weeks of practice.
There's no way they only had 2 weeks of practice.
It doesn't make sense.
Who said that?
But they said this on the I think it was FNS said it when they're like Tarek asked, said 2 weeks.
Being modest.
I think it might have been like 2 weeks since they 100% got Mada and Verno in, maybe.
Yeah.
And with the coach, but like some of the prac days maybe counted a little bit to this because they are crazy well drilled. For 2 weeks, this is like insanity how well drilled they are. Really, really cool stuff throughout the whole event. Multiple maps in just everything in terms of like planning, their attack side, their retakes. Like on a lot of these maps, especially like Haven, Split, even Sunset, I was just blown away with just how much stuff they had and how ready they were for a lot of these situations. I was crazy impressed. I thought this was it was a sick event anyway, just because we got to see so many like best of threes and so many like maps between them. And then like the listen in just gives us so much. Like I didn't realize Som is this vocal.
Som called so much for them. More than so we've occasionally been allowed to listen to the Americas communications, like when we're doing reports and stuff for talking about not strat stuff on the broadcast, but like dynamics like that. How much is Som vocally calling in the mid rounds and these kind of like tidbits. And I don't remember Som calling that much previously. I feel like this is a development for him. It also felt like Finesse was taking more of a back seat. It is a small sample size because you only get to listen in occasionally. But I think of all of the rounds that we tuned in for listening to NRG, there was only like 2 where Finesse was actually the vocal kind of call in the mid round. He's probably doing a lot of the pre-round stuff that we didn't get to hear. But Som was probably the most vocal player.
He did like a lot of sorry to cut you off. He did a lot of a lot of overcalling, which is kind of like something that you really want, and especially when it's like 100% right. There's like a round on Split where they were like in mid and he killed the guy on B, and then they were like prodding into B, and he's like, no, it's like 100% just come back to me, like we're not splitting, because I think FNS said we should split, and he's just like, no, and I think I heard him overcall like twice, but every time it was like 100% he's sure, and the rest of the team does follow, and that's like, I don't know, that's such a good sign when you can have people like that. And I feel like just watching this event, I got way more of an idea why FNS wants Som in like every iteration of team that he does, because this is the stuff that we have no idea about. And as soon as you have these listens in, you just hear how like vocal, how good he is. He's not making any mistakes in like afterplants, by the way. You've seen this guy in afterplants playing it like to perfection. So yeah, I was massively impressed with him, and just the overcalling, and again like just the confidence to just be like, this is 100% what's right, and then everyone just listens is awesome.
Listening to the other teams as well, there's a large contrast. Sorry, go on then, Seth.
No, it's stupid. I was just gonna make a joke that Finesse just wants Som in his team because he's getting fucking hard carried by him, and that's why he insists that he has to be around. But it's just a stupid joke. So
I like that. The idea that we always look at Finesse at the bottom of the scoreboard and we're like, but the calling, man, he's just so good with the calling. And he's like, Som, you gotta come with me, bro, because like the calling's pretty good.
And it's like, and this Finesse guy just always sees the potential in Som. Like he's always had the eyes out there for these players.
When I was listening to NRG's comms compared to some of the other teams, one of the things that I really appreciate about Finesse, and I think that I would want a team in a similar kind of way, is that he's said before as well, vocally on stream and stuff, that he just couldn't handle the frantic, high-tension comms of some of the other teams. And when you listen to EG C9, you're getting a lot of that. You're getting a lot of frantic communication. And it's not even necessarily bad comms. It's just that everything sounds very urgent. Everything sounds very urgent. And
sounds
sometimes
like you're watching Overwatch.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And a lot of stuff is repeated twice. Sometimes when people are comming stuff, they're disagreeing with the comm rather than like you're talking about, Sliggy, if someone overcalls, everyone on NRG seemed like they just trust the overcall, and that's just something that they've got set. Whereas there was a lot more back and forth and kind of arguing in the mid round from some of the other teams in frantic moments, which you know is not unusual, but it was remarkable how relaxed the calling was on NRG, which allowed those comms to come through nice and clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I yap about some of the rounds?
You can pull some of the clips.
Yeah. So I got a clip here. If you do the first one, it's the anti-breach ult setup. So this is like an old school strat. You can just run it. It's like an old school strat the teams used to do. We used to run this in like 2022, 2021, where like you push down over towards long. And the cool thing about this is they have like a trap play over towards A. And basically at the moment there's like a little micro meta where everyone with a breach ult will go over towards A, because you breach ult the site itself, and then because you get to save all your util like Omen Flash and breach damage, you can always go under Heaven, right? And then when they try and retake, you can always just use the Omen Flash or the breach damage because you use the breach ult to get into the site. So they have an anti-setup here where they're trying to push them into the trap play by pushing long, and they know that everyone likes to breach ult over towards A just because it's super, super strong. They just have a pure setup that is literally camera contact into Omen Flash, and then you send it obviously and kill most likely the breach who is breach ulting from this position. I feel like was it Bang here that actually did really well to just TP past and kind of outplay Som.
Well, he got caught by it in the previous round. They ran the exact same setup in round 5 as well, and Bang got caught.
Yeah, because I think they were one away from the breach orb, so I think they left the C orb open. They were expecting him to get it and then come back to A. So like every time they are playing against the breach orb, I'm pretty sure they like wanted to run this. And it's just cool to see that they just have these little things that are like already in a team. Like this is pretty high skill stuff where we're just like this is the setup. Most teams here will just like put a Cypher on A and try and get a kill from Heaven. So I love that they actually have like we play this when they have the ults, and I was just so impressed with how drilled they were with setups and their retakes. I've got another clip here which is just their retake, and I could have picked like 5 to 10 retakes that they did on Haven, but I went for a Sunset one where like it's over B site, and I feel like they already have pretty good protocols at the moment over towards B site, because obviously B site's changed. And if they can't hold back a site, what they do is they normally retake from market a lot earlier. Like they'll try and hold back a site, and then if they lose back a site, they'll make sure that they retake from market heavier instead of back a site, because you go into such a brutal crossfire with these news boxes. But this is insane. Breach damage to default. Then they have the wall from the neon, which the breach then watches as the neon goes in, so it isolates them. And then they know that they have to go either side. So they're either going into the wall of the neon or they're going into the Omen Flash from Heaven. And there's just so many good retakes where they're just using their util so well.
One of the things I want to point out here as well is you see how much NRG are pressuring though the plant. They're not just allowing Sentinels to transition straight into their post plant positions. If you look at that clip, all 4 of the there's one player in B main, but all the 4 of the Sen players are clustered on top of the spike at default. None of them are in good post plant spots, and that was another thing that I really noticed NRG doing on defense, is that they apply a lot of pressure like as the plant's going down, as people are trying to scale. And that's something I think is really missing from Sentinel's defense. Sen do that transition into their like retake setup almost immediately as soon as an exit comes through. So they give a lot more freedom to these attacking teams to get into like spots against them. And I think that NRG here are showcasing that you can't just have a set retake protocol and as soon as you see the exec, like everyone just lines up ready to do it. There has to be that intermediary pressure that causes the mistakes from the post planners too.
They were very fluid the way they were playing, especially that Sunset map where it went like 18-16, whatever the hell the end score was. But it was a lot of back and forths of like Sentinels realizing that they could get onto the B side, get into a post plant playing on B, play maybe like a crossfire setup towards the back, and it was being given up. But the adjustments over time by NRG where they were playing to try and play post plant and now were trying to flood defend a lot more towards the back were really nice. And the first clip that you pulled up as well, Sliggy, of them kind of trying to get ahead of the breach ult, I was seeing that a lot from NRG in the maps that I watched, not just in those instances, but where they, you know, there's areas of certain maps where the attacking team kind of has to take it in 2 waves of util. Like Sunset A is the prime example through main. You have to win the main fight and you have to like kind of win it through elbow again. It takes like almost like 2 waves of it before you get onto the side itself. NRG do a lot of these like catching the contact plays where they set up in the interim, like between that first stage, second stage moment where they're holding util, waiting for signs of life. And they were doing a lot of that where it was very successful in terms of like disrupting the execs that SEN were either trying to set up for or the fights they were trying to take. The only times it was not like, I mean, kind of not working for them were when Sentinels started adjusting with their contact plays a lot. But even then, I was dead impressed with this team. And I bought a hook, line, sinker that apparently they've only had 2 weeks back, but they're not playing like it at all, man. They are really not playing like it at all. It's dead impressive. And another aspect of their gameplay, I think, was on their attack sides a lot, which is with Verno Amada coming into this team, the kind of calling style that they go for, where they get these little micro pauses, and they're always pausing across the board at the same time together as a team. No one's out of sync. No one's out of step. If there's util to set up a play that Mada wants to go for, then they're always going to be in a position to do it. But it was very impressive to me just how drilled they were, is the word that immediately comes to mind. Like drilled and disciplined, I think, because they're almost all on the same page. And it's not like they're all just go, go, go. And the timings are very inherently easy to understand. They were taking a lot of little pauses in the round to try and wait to see if Verno could get something done with his lurks. Maybe he's calming that. The communication, I think, is definitely a huge portion as to why I think that they are like that. Because, again, it comes back to listening to them versus other teams. Fucking frantic as hell. I would not be able to decipher anything that's going on in some of those teams like EG and Cloud9 most of the time. They're like screaming and shouting at most points. But NRG are usually pretty cool, calm, and collected. And I mean, I don't know. It showed pretty well. They look so damn good.
Yeah. I also, one of the big things in the SEN NRG game was that Zekken ended up getting blasted in that one. And it's not because he wasn't hitting his shots necessarily. He started 0-5 on Haven. And normally he's just good for almost every entry, right? He absolutely tears through teams. But if you look at his stats on Haven, he went 7-17. Yeah, and he went 3-5 on the first Bloods. And one of the things that I was noticing repeatedly, so round 3 and round 7 are very good for this Kurt, if you are able to find SEN NRG Haven. It was that I think they'd noticed from previous games, because NRG's defense, in my opinion, didn't look that great over like day 1 and 2. I didn't watch it live, so I can't remember. Was it over 3 days, right?
Yeah, 3.
Right. But when I was watching NRG on day 1, I think it was, maybe it was day 2 as well, I felt like their defense was worse than their attack side. I really love the way that Finesse calls the attack sides, this like defaulting into working a pick or figuring out what the reaction's going to be from the defense. But their defense looked like it hadn't really gotten going. Look at the way that they're fighting here. So they're like, Finesse is swinging as the smoke goes down, looking to try to take the unexpected timing onto Zekken, as Zekken just assumes people are going to respect him as he goes forwards into areas. When you watch anyone else play against Zekken, they like run in fear to try to stay alive and give a lot of respect, and he just runs them down and wins the duel and takes all of the fights on his tempo. If you can skip ahead to round 7 as well here, Kurt, because that's mainly the focus here, is just looking at how they take the early fights. They were fighting him on really unexpected angles and timings when Zekken's like in his transition between, taking space. That he's anticipating that he's going to be able to take all of this room, and NRG are finding spots to be able to take contact like early on, and then they use util to be able to get out of these like contact spots that they're taking. You see them when they walk down mid as well. When they walk mid on their Haven defense, they'll like take a fight and then use a bunch of utility to get out, not to over push. They don't use the utility to set up the fight. Here, you see Ethan is in Heaven anticipating an Omen ult play. And so there's just no world in which Zekken's expecting a breach to be holding that level of contact. Normally someone would be like behind the default, maybe even in hell. There's just at the beginning of the round there, he's not anticipating it. Boom, your entry play has just gone right from the beginning of the round, and things are screwed for Sentinels. I thought NRG looked, the like developments they made over the course of this tournament looked really, really good on their defense. The adjustments to what teams they were playing against.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even just to highlight FNS and just like how proactive they were on their defense. I think I agree with what you're saying there. Like the first day, they were maybe just a little bit stale on their defense, and it was like they talked about it and realized they needed to be way more proactive. the amount of time that they were pushing towards like C long on A, and even their bind was like pretty proactive on defense. It's really nice when they're proactive. Their win rate is through the roof on defense. So
I actually think though that one of the things was weird that they were doing the same, like we're gonna take contact early and then fall back into an area we can use util. But that was getting caught a little bit in their game against C9, I think it was, because C9 were running these like bursts onto them. And then if you burst onto NRG when they're holding these kind of like slightly less optimal angles, yeah, well then you're catching them because the NRG players are not like in cover ready to throw utility. They're waiting to hold contact. So like if you're grouping up next to a choke point and then you're like, throw 1,000 pieces of utility and run at them, then suddenly that was catching NRG a bit more off guard, I think, which is why it's important to adjust your defensive ideas depending on what the attacking team's doing as well. I just thought it was a masterclass read of how Sen liked to play and completely destroyed Zekken.
I don't want to talk about Sen just yet. I'd rather talk about C9 and AG because I think we'll probably spend a lot of time on Sen to finish it. But
Have we not been talking about them?
What, Sen?
No, just kidding.
Nothing at all? No, we will talk about them. The Cloud9...
They boost the ratings, Seth.
Yeah, well, listen,
Of course.
Sentinels makes the money. That's why we're pivoting the podcast to only North America. Not even going to talk about the Brazilian teams anymore or the Latin teams. We're just only going to talk about the North American teams. The Cloud9, now, listen, I'll be, as I've just said that, we're only going to talk about the North American teams. Guess what? Didn't watch Cloud9 games at all because they lost every match. So I didn't want to watch them. But
they weren't bad.
Yeah,
you should have
had
had a
like
look.
One of the results. That's what I mean. I kind of regret not going back and watching it because watching EG play versus Sen and against the NRG team as well. EG's caliber on a certain maps as well. I think they had a lot of fleshed out ideas, like their Abyss, for example. But I don't know. There was a lot of parity between these teams. It wasn't exactly like they were getting blown out. They had some close maps and matches early on. So I mean, what's the overall read with Cloud9?
So the way that I view it is everyone wants off seasons are weird because everyone wants to get different things out of them, right? I feel like NRG wanting to try and get some just confidence as well, especially as like FNS is coming back. I think just getting any kind of confidence in, kind of win under your belt is like what they want to do. They want to prove to people and themselves that they're really good, because I think it's all good and well thinking that you can come back and you can do good, but there's always that little bit inside you like, well, maybe everyone's right, especially when they get so much like backlash from people. So it's nice for him to kind of get confidence that he can play up to the level that he did in terms of FNS, really strong, and just having the confidence that the Madder and Verno can play at this level and that they can kind of compete with the best. And then you got C9, and I think C9 were just more trying to just iron out a lot of their stuff. I feel like they had been practicing a good amount of maps. They definitely did a little bit of anti, which was good against EG, which I think was pretty strong. But I think they were just like behind other teams in terms of how well drilled they were. It feels like they got a lot more to learn than the other teams, whether it's just like new IGL as well with like Rossi calling and just a lot of ideas. Because I think like if you go into the listens in, that's probably where it's like one of the more hectic teams. Yeah, so I feel like definitely. they're trying to just like find just get everything out in the open, just hear everything, and then they can just go back and look through the mistakes. Like they're not in a position where they're like fully ready to win and stuff like that, but I think this is just one of those ones where we can look back and be like, these are good losses. We can look at how we lost this. We can change this. Like we need to change this. Like we're coming too much here. We should have done this in this area. And I think there's just loads of good situations where they should have learned. Like, dude, this round is criminal, by the way. So they go plant over. So you know what I was talking over towards A, right? You meant to use util, and you meant to get someone under heaven, breach damage. In this case, breach or omen flash. They prioritize the Sova under heaven, which is just like, you don't do that these days. It's like 2021 shit. And then like they're playing off a site with breach all, and then they don't use the breach all early, like their after plants. This came after the round where they just stacked over towards C long against a smoker and were all spamming through the smoke. Yeah. Like their after plant protocols aren't there. They've been focusing on other stuff. And they just got a lot to learn, but I think like this is such a good tournament for them to learn, and they showed a lot of nice stuff that I'm actually not that worried about this team. The only slight worry was like Oxy had one day off, and that's the first ever time I've seen him have like an off day where he's not fragging heavy, so I'm not super worried about that. It's just the fact that it happened, I guess, is like that team's doomed if he doesn't frag.
You know that he's capable of being mortal.
Yeah, basically. But this is the first time we've ever seen it. which is pretty impressive still.
Yeah.
But we
This
know
was
it
the
can
first-
happen.
This was the first tournament with Rossi playing, right? Like he wasn't playing
them,
for,
yeah.
for Red Bull.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
They had Mitch
then
calling
I'm in the
last
same
time.
camp. Like it's the first tournament out. Like things can be a little bit rough and everything widely should be fine.
It's just a
I
learning
think
process.
they've already got their best foot forward with the off season. I think they're taking it seriously, playing in as many events as possible. So
Yeah.
even if
That's what they did last
Cloud9
time,
are not
too.
looking like what's that?
They did that last time too. They played a lot of off-season tournaments, looked good, and then
That's true.
didn't look as
yeah.
good during the season.
They did, and then that's a life lesson to always take a grain of salt with off-season results and expectations with it. But I do think it's the right play to make. You can't just I don't know, actual official play even in the off-season. Are they attending the SVL too later?
I'm not
They
sure.
did
They're in
yeah,
home
but-
ground. I know that. So they're in a tournament in like 20 days for home
Right.
ground.
Yeah.
Cloud9 though, they're the kind of team that I think can occasionally surprise you with some really good strategies and tactics that they bring to events. Their game against EG, they had some really nice stuff. I mean, that's specifically good against what EG was running, but just generally as well. Some also just very good, like faster tempo mid plays compared to what teams are used to, where teams are usually on attack going to do some like slower, tentative, cautious work through mid, and then the defenders have time to react to that and maybe set up some kind of re-clear. That's what EG were doing a lot of, and it was still really working quite well. And then C9 came into the game and were doing a lot of like quicker plays through mid that were catching people off guard and punishing the fact that EG were reacting to mid aggression. So that all looked really nice. But also, on top of what you're talking about with like afterplan protocols and that kind of thing, I feel like C9 also just have an identity with their team that they haven't moved away from too much, which is that they're antsy as fuck. They always want to be doing something at all times in the round. And I think it's easy to play against teams like that. When you see Sentinels play against them, they just wait. And they're just like, these guys are going to walk into us eventually. And they're always right. C9 are never running the clock down on defense and just waiting for the attackers to do something. They're getting mobile here and we're trying to work a pick here and they're, okay, we've already pushed out this area, so let's back off and try to find a timing over there. And eventually, they just end up making more mistakes than other teams because they're doing more than other teams as well. So I think that's something that they're going to have to look at eventually. It's fine to have a style that's more proactive than others. You know, Heretics had that style, actually. They were more proactive on the re-clears with that mid-round defense. But the Heretic stuff was mega tight and extremely well practiced. And when you combine the like proactivity on defense with being slightly sloppier like C9 are, the quantity of mistakes just goes up. And I think it's too easy for these top teams to find the punish. So that's my main concern with C9, because the other stuff can be fixed fairly easily with time, I think.
For every team.
I was going to say, there's just so many mistakes here that it's so nice to get them out early and have the demo and just look over them and just write them all down and just be like, yep, that's you make it once, you learn from it, and then it's just in your head. I think that's like the best thing that they're doing, all the off-season stuff. So yeah, I'm excited. And again, the anti against EG, like you were saying, was really good. Like we got on to EG in a bit, but like they made Vice look like a one and done agent only just because they antied the hell out of it. So that's pretty cool.
For me, I was just going to say, like, for every team that you have, it's like NRG coming into the tournament, where like, damn, they only had 2 weeks. You can have the inverse, and it's like, okay, this team clearly isn't, you know,
2 weeks.
they're working there. You're like, yeah, this is 2 weeks, like, you know.
Sliggy can fix in 1 hour in a dark room, no
1 hour in a dark room. If Bren's
yeah.
there, then there's no police interference.
Yep.
You know, together, they can fix anything in the world. But yeah, I think we just, you know, it's one of those things, just give it a little bit more time and then really pass your judgments. No one should really be passing super harsh judgments on anything in the off season.
Yeah. No, this is you're right. This is how a team should look after 2 weeks. I think NRG, because they have FNS and Bonker that are like pretty good on a lot of the maps that are out at the moment, especially like Split, Haven, when you look at both of those historically. So I feel like that's helped them get everything down like real fast. So yeah, it just takes a little bit longer. Because it's mad. If it is only 2 weeks, it's mad they look this good. It's like unheard of. It really is.
EG, I want to talk about EG. Just about how I'm down for this. Like, I don't know, this redemption arc almost. Like EG's just a place where players who they're on their last hurrah go to, and then they have that upswing. Like it was Derek last year. I mean, this year you got Yaster coming in, dude. Yeah, Josh, you're gassed up. You were fist pumping as soon as I mentioned EG. He's back. Yaster's back.
The devil's
he looks
back.
good on the Sen role, man. I was saying it on the last episode. I think it's almost like it's the perfect cure. I think for an ailing former top player is you shove them on the Sentinel role. You really just knuckle down and nail down like kind of the positions they're supposed to be playing in, and then you just let the mechanics take over. Yeah, and we were seeing that with Ye.
His setups are also really nice. He was making a couple mistakes with his like choosing which setup to run, playing Cypher on defense on Haven. He was like playing a heavy anchor Plat setup when he had no help on one of the days, like day 1 or day 2 or something. Fixed it completely in the next days, and that was those decision-making mistakes were so minimal anyway. Generally, Ye's anchoring was very good. The setups were diverse. He was finding opportunities to get aggressive onto people, throwing help smokes for people as well. Like, I had somebody come into my chat while I was doing the VOD review and being like, are they trolling? Why is Ye not playing Duelist? I was like, they're not trolling. He's reinventing himself, and he's doing a fucking good job of doing it too. Because his aim was looking good as well. He was hitting.
This is, I think, what everyone wanted to see this year with him on Bleed. Like, because he came in, wasn't playing Duelist. We weren't sure what was going on. And at that point, it was like super bizarre because Bleed wasn't able to really extract solid performances from him when he was playing things like Viper and Sky for the first time ever. This felt like, okay, there's been a bit more iteration and maybe a bit more care put into it. And we're getting back towards the Ye that we, have come to know and love and expect. And I think that is fantastic because I didn't think that this year was any kind of, solid shake for him. I think that team, as we've kind of seen in light of recent history, bit of a fucking dumpster fire. So seeing him here and then already looking a lot more comfortable in a different role other than Duelist, making adjustments and whatnot, it seems like the fit is perhaps there. EG still does have a lot of things to improve on. Obviously, I mean, they got blown out of the water on a couple different maps, but for the most part, I think that there is a significant amount of hope.
Yeah, they showed some like good ideas. I think their Vice only, if I'm really critical, I think the Vice only looked good on Abyss. And then I would say it's like a one and done. It's just going to get antied. And then for the other maps, I kind of think you should just be running a Cypher if you're going to play it like that. I would be running a Chamber with just how good he's shooting, but we won't go into that because I know he doesn't like that. He pretty much tweeted about it. I imagine I'm like the number one believer. I'd be putting him on Chamber every map, but I know that's like a broken record at this point. I will say, Kurt, can you run that clip again? I think it's the 7-2 one that you literally just ran. This was what impressed me a lot as well, was like just their other ideas that weren't really around the Vice. This happened because they had the Vice on B, so they had the wall here, so they only had to use like one smoke over towards B. But I love this stuff that we're doing where it's like the double smokes and fighting over towards middle. This was awesome. They kind of go in the Gen.G route of Astra Omen, which I think is a good route to go if you don't want to like rely heavy on a Neon. I think like this is like a really kind of good route to go. And this hold of middle is sick, where we're like smoking the top of middle, but then we have like this one way on the box here to kind of have duels, and then we just prioritize this area from Derek. And you can always swing through this smoke and trade them if anyone's committing up heaven as well. So they actually have they have some good understanding of when they should be swinging. And their mid hold is like one of the best I've seen. This smoke on this the box, I don't know what to call it, like the one that's committed over towards middle. That's really good with that position at the back. It's such a nice one way. So I was impressed with a lot of that stuff. And it's only kind of doable because of the Vice wall over towards B. You don't actually need like a star there other than like the jump star. So they had some really good stuff. They were definitely cooking a little bit. I didn't like the Vice stuff. Other than this map, I thought it was the only one time it looked good.
Did you not like it because you thought the setups were bad and the Vice wasn't getting value, or just because there are better things to run with other characters?
Better things to run than other characters. It doesn't make sense. Like you're just doing it for the hell of it. And
I mean, I liked what they were cooking though. I liked the idea, like they're sending in the razor vines on the execs. It's like separating people out so that you can jump on them with your duelist. Their defense was much more like the anchor can get much more proactive with a flash and peeking in as the execute comes through rather than just waiting for yourself to get overwhelmed. I think they had Ye solo anchoring A and they weren't holding heaven, which if you're not playing Vice and you're not able to actually take your own timings, you're just waiting to die there, man. You like if you're playing anything else, Cypher, Killjoy, that is a death sentence playing split like that. I thought it had some value, but I do agree with you that it's just surely it's not better than running.
Hey, you might as well every single way that they did it,
those
apart
maps.
from Abyss, you might as well just be running
Welcome back,
Cypher.
Bren.
My power tripped.
Oh.
Okay, well, welcome
My
back.
power tripped, and also
We're on a
running
Texas
solo.
power grid, so you know.
Dude, any
Par for the course.
electricians around? Like, dude, where's Barlow when I need him, man? Like, dude, we've been trying to solve this problem with the power. I mean, it's got to be. We thought we fixed it by like spreading out the
Off
shit, but
camera,
just,
Plugging
got like
too
10
much shit
fan
into
heaters.
one wall.
Yeah.
Like,
dude. Yeah. I mean, I got my crypto farming set up too. I don't know what's going on. It just keeps dying.
there's
guys.
just
What's
50
going on?
PCs on your right hand side that we
Did
can't
I-
see on camera.
I mean, you do have Pelican box after Pelican box or suitcases or something behind you that all look like they could be full of
That's my
electronics
guns.
plugged into the
Okay.
right.
Ah, yes.
I'm in Texas. You know, it's
Of
like-
course,
Oh.
of course.
Yeah, those
Dude,
are
you're
my-
gonna need more suitcases. You could probably buy so many more in the coming months. Like that is gonna be great for you.
Those are my weapons. Yeah. Did I miss a Vice discussion?
Yeah, a little bit.
You're talking
We
about
were
the
talking
Vice
about Yay
viability?
primarily.
Go on,
I
what do
mean,
you
we
think?
won't
What do you
really hit
think?
it, but I mean, Solo Vice is troll, straight up. I think, and I think also as much as we were crediting the setups and whatnot, I think one of the best things you need to take advantage of Vice is the flash to set up trap plays and set up players on angles, which they were kind of trying to do. They were trying to set Sim up like opping, peeking from back halls, like on Pearl, with a flash like straight above, like looking down long. But yeah, I also think like the wall can't be broken. You can outplay it by jump spotting it, but you want to be setting up like trap plays where you want to be taking advantage of the fact that they can't break the wall. It's the only piece of Sentinel utility which you can't break. You have to like make noise. You have to be awkwardly jumping in the air. You can't take a fight properly if you are trying to bait it out. Like you want to be using that to your advantage, I think, a lot more. So
Yeah,
they'll get there.
agree.
I mean, that's just setup stuff, and I do have faith in EG. Anyway, I don't want to keep
it's a-
hitting it when you guys have hit it.
It's a one and done agent though. It is a one and done agent. You can just anti it too heavy because like it's like what you're saying. Like you go up if you use their abyss wall as an example over towards B. Like you go up, you jump it, and then it literally protects you from anything. Like you're not gonna fall
Yeah.
for that more than
So
once. Like it's never gonna. It should never get more than one win in this comp.
The reason I like double Sentinel though is because then you just free up the Vice to do whatever the fuck they want. They're constantly switching up their util across the map, and that way it's not a thing to be antied. It's like you're plugging up the gaps of the cipher, and you're always making it like, oh my god, the wall was there on one round, now it's over here, and they don't think to jump spot
and,
it.
and
You
you
know?
can try force them into like the cipher, and then you can have Vice setups with it. I agree. I would always try and run it with a double. I think that's the only way it can win more than like one, maybe
double-
two games if the other team hasn't antied it well.
The only double Senti setup that we saw from any of the teams was Sentinels running it on Abyss. They ran Narrate, Cypher, and Zelsis on Vice, and I thought that looked very poor. I thought that was worse
Yeah, I mean,
than
also
running the solo.
Vice not good on Abyss, in my opinion, from the perspective of like, I mean, I'm just going off of fucking like me playing 100 hours in ranked, but when you're trying
And
to be
that's
proactive
proven to be
with your
not great.
util, it has proven to be not great at all. But when you're trying to be proactive with your util on attackers Vice, the only thing you can do is lurk, and you don't even have like cages to block off angles when you're lurking like a Cypher would up through mid. Like you are so far away from all the walls. You have the same problem that like Deadlock has in those double Sentinel comps that teams run. You need the map to be compact, condensed, where you can have access and easy reach to the opposite wall to put down like a sonic sensor like really aggressively, or put down your wall aggressively, like to help your team in the post plant. Big maps, you don't get that. Abyss, you're doing a marathon sprint with your fucking wall out in your hands, trying to like place it on the back wall, and you have to overextend yourself to like 50 angles to do it. Like your team needs full side control, and at that point, you're already probably going to win on Abyss if you have full side control over towards like A and back side holds already. So it's almost like it's a win more agent where you were going to win in the first place if you're going to be running, I think, in those instances. But anyway, I don't want to yap too much because again, we're dragging, and
I like it
missed
unbind. I like it unbind so far.
Bind is really good.
He won.
The thing that we haven't talked about with EG though is Sim, because a lot of people were roasting the fuck out of Sim for for this and talking about, I mean, people love overreacting, don't they? They overreact Andes. Sim had a really bad tournament, though. There's no way around it. I was watching the games at the beginning of the tournament. I already knew the stats. I was watching them from the VOD, and I had people coming into my chat constantly being like, what do you think of Sim? What do you think of Sim? At the beginning of the tournament, I was like, he's fine. Like, he's missing some shots, but he's all right. And then the more I watched, the more I was like, wow, there really are some bad moments cropping up over and over and over again from him. But I also just don't think it's reasonable to make big conclusions from one event that lasted 3 days. And you gotta give him more time to see if he is able to perform in this system to the potential that he's showcased in the tier 2 level. And if he doesn't, there's gonna be other duelists that EG can pick up. So it's not gonna be a disaster for them to give Sim a proper try at the beginning of this year. And I think he'll perform better than he did here. This was remarkably poor, I think, for a player that has been better.
It was a shocker. Yeah, it was an absolute shocker. Like, aim, decision making, pretty much everything was like really off. I don't think they set him up well. Like, I will say that much. I think there's more times where they could have set him up, and a lot of times he's just set up to just die, to be honest with you, or at least make space. But there's loads of times where it's like, you got to do better in those situations. And I don't know if it's like this hesitation thing, because sometimes I like him when he sends it. Like, when it's a full send and it's like there's util behind him and it's like the first 10 seconds, he actually does pretty good. Like, when it's like set play and he's 100% sure, he's like, this is what I do on this one. I absolutely send it. I try to get space. I know that util is here and here. When it's like anything that isn't as drilled as that, he actually looks a little bit lost. So I guess that will come with a bit of time. And I'm hoping that he's not one of those players that like second guesses himself, where it's like, I want to do this, and it's like, oh, maybe should I do that? And you're like lost in no man's. And then I saw it like once over towards short on Haven, I think, where it's like he was going to push, but then didn't push, and then he was just caught up like in the middle of short. And it's like, you can't have that, man. You got to have, like, whatever the first thought is in your head, you got to go with it and ask for some kind of util. So hopefully that will come in time. But yeah, it was a shocker. People, like, you gotta call it out when you see it. It was it would be hard to have this bad event again.
I think that if everything continues forward, because to my knowledge, like, EG, have they announced signings? Anyone
Potter said that this was a temporary roster, but this is what she wants to run with this year. So that implies that there's some fuckery going on with some contract or something.
Okay.
Sounds like EG want to put them on the reserve roster to save some money before the season begins, in my opinion. But who knows what
I mean, entirely possible. But from that, you basically kind of hit exactly what I was going to go to, was that if Potter says this is the roster that I have faith in, I have faith in the roster. I trust Potter. I think that she's incredibly proven. I think that she can make turn shit into gold, basically. So if she says, like, I have a lot of faith in these players and these are the 5 that I want to go with, then I am entirely behind her.
Yeah. I think Potter's got enough street cred at this point. Like, you can't really doubt her, I think. But yeah, I mean,
Potter can sell me any crypto coin. I have none. I have absolutely zero. And if she came to me and said, Seth, this is going to make us millions of dollars, I need your life savings, I'd go, you know what, Christine? Let's fucking go. And I would empty the account. I wouldn't tell my wife. I would just do it, because it doesn't matter, because all I have to tell my wife in the end is that, hey, babe, we got millions now.
Dude,
We're set for life.
Christine at the casino. That's a dangerous
gambit. You know what? Like, I would follow her to the ends.
That is a dangerous gambit.
So your thought process goes that because somebody's very good at Valorant coaching, you'll trust them with financial advice. Now, what other domains would you trust her as a doctor? Would you trust her as a rocket scientist? Are you flying to the moon based on something that Potter built in a garage from scratch?
Sure. If she just looked at me and was just like, you gotta see a specialist. Like, I just trust that there was something wrong with me, and I would just go I would go get an MRI or something like that. Like,
okay, I'm just filing that in the back of my head as ways to manipulate Seth later on. Just get into Potter's good books. You can make Seth do anything.
All right, should we finally talk about Sentinels or the SEN City Classic?
It's
yes,
the
please. Whole point of all it is. Yeah, Sentinels. I mean, listen, the people clamoring. We're going crazy over this, talking about what are they doing with the roles? What are they doing with the roles? Do the roles make sense? Is this even a topic of conversation that we should be having about the roles this early in the off season? Is another question, because this is surely the time to experiment. If you're gonna mess around, which Kaplan said they're doing, like, is this not the time where you have a bit more free reign? Like, I think if you put too much pressure to just have all the answers now, you're focusing all your energy at the wrong point of the year when the season isn't yet to start until January. Like, at some point you got to trust the process, but also, the Valorant fan base is filled with children, so it's like I can understand that. It is, listen, the patience is not.
It's not filled with children, Bren. It's filled with morons.
I mean, children can also be morons. Well, every moron was a child at some point.
This is me as well. This is some like bitter, this is some bitter, like, I don't know what you'd call it, not projection, but I don't know, man. Just
because you're a child
reaching
moron.
fucking no. Well, yes, I was a child moron, and now I'm an adult moron. But this is I'm reaching like
CM is what we abbreviate to.
Unk status in Valorant is like a death sentence. I can't play ranked anymore. I can't com because I don't know how to communicate with people, and because like they're seeing like fucking. They're like minions in the call. Like they're like minions in the game, and they're just like they'll be saying some stuff, and I say the wrong thing out of step, and they're like, "Oh, you're old," and it's like, dude, I'm like, this must be what the CS heads feel like when they fucking tried to play Valorant at the age of like 35, and they're just like, dude, I miss the days of Quake. I remember when Rafa was the best. Like what those people. And now I'm like, I play Valorant Ranked, and I'm like, I realize, wait a second, the people who are probably watching our show and who are watching esports are like all between the ages of like 13 to like 19, I guess. I don't know. And I'm just like, dude, I'm unk status. I'm actually unk status now. I just, when at some point there's going to be like there's a point of no return where I'm just like, I just can't, I just need to exit.
You have to attack
the
them.
elephant graveyard and just lay down and die.
See, the thing is, you can't. You can't attack them in ways that they understand. You have to go at them with things that they just don't know. So you have to just, if they start coming at you and they're calling you unk or whatever, you have to just start screaming at them like, "You don't have a mortgage! You don't have a mortgage! You don't have a mortgage!" And just yell.
Who the fuck has a mortgage at our age?
It doesn't matter whether or not you do.
It doesn't matter whether leaving us. The economy's failing. Fucking there's a surge of alt-right wings. We're fucked right now, sir. We're fucked.
Yeah, let's just play the song. Play the song. But you don't have to have a mortgage. You just have to attack them with things that they don't understand. Yell at them about buying a house. Yell at them about having a mortgage.
That's just piling on more.
Because you're going to confuse them because they're stupid. So like those people, they go into confusion and they hurt themselves. They're like Pokemon.
I would be confused if you started shouting at me, "Do you have a mortgage?" in the middle of a fucking Valorant game. I think that's a reasonable response. Frankly, I think that's a normal human response to be confused at why an old drunk man from America living in Korea in the APAC ranked servers is asking me if I have a fucking mortgage. Yes, I think that's unusual. And Bren, I like playing with those children because it's either the children going bippity boppity boo in my ears, or it's fucking Europeans throwing out slurs in every language. In every language. Pull up a dictionary, pull up Google Translate. Oh, they've got them every single time. And I don't know what I'm going to interact with. It's crazy out there in Europe, man. I'm digging through the mines of absolute filth every day.
I don't have a mortgage either. Just
how did we get?
None of us have a mortgage, Seth. We're millennials. We've eaten too much avocado toast. We don't have a mortgage.
Oh,
you
guys know about the millennial pause before videos?
Go on. What is it?
Do you know about this?
No.
This is
that sounds like a world-ending event. Like the Great Filter, the millennial pause.
I mean, so one of the things is like it's an immediate tell that you. Yes, Josh knows about it. It's an immediate tell of like you're from the generation where you still call like dogs like doggo, oh puppo, like oh, and then like you've got like a Disney pass like to go like every like twice a year or whatever the fuck it is. Like you're
Season
it's
pass,
like it's when you're recording a video and they don't cut it to like start talking. Like as when it begins recording, they like wait a second. You're like, wait a second. It's like, so like, and it's that pause purely associated with people who are out of touch with phones.
I mean, you're supposed to do that just for editing. But I guess
Well,
that's
that's what I mean. They don't even edit it. They just pull
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
middle.
You're talking about somebody who just posted online
I mean,
straight
most
away.
of the time it's because people want to check whether or not it's recording.
It's recording.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
check it's recording. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's like
Is
it's
Fucking thing on.
anyway. That's. Should we talk?
What? Yeah, the Sentinels roles. How did we end up down this path? What's going on over here?
Dude, here it is. Okay, here. I mean, this is just.
I just,
The self-loathing
look, I
from
derailed
our
this. I
generation
derailed this.
is crazy. Oh,
It
okay.
really
So I was seeing a lot of people.
Stop it.
All right. I'm done. I'm out. Goodbye.
John Cutie is playing Initiator for this team. He has played some Initiator before. Some people apparently have forgotten that entirely. They think
actually
he's only
was
ever played Sentinel.
back in the Ghost Gaming days when they had almost this entire same coaching staff.
Right. And then Narrate is also what I would consider to be like a hyperflex player. He really can play, I think, almost anything. You could put him on any of the roles, give him enough time. I'm pretty confident that he can get there with them. So I don't really have necessarily a problem with that aspect of it that some people seem to. But I know that TMV made a video. I mean, TMV loves roasting Sen. It's like his little...
Bros. As soon as they lose, I'll go on YouTube and it'll just be in your recommended, and it's like Sentinels are fucking shit. So it's like, what the hell? It's as long as one off season. They lost to
literally
NRG.
came second. They came second.
they
They
came
only
second.
lost to NRG. Sentinels are doomed already.
Yeah.
Sentinels are making this one big mistake. Sentinels have never played this poorly.
Yeah, what the hell is Sentinels
Made
doing?
every
It's like,
wrong
chill,
choice.
man.
So, but the point that he was making in that with new Sentinels team already has a problem is the one that was about the role swaps, right? And a lot of other people are talking about it as well. But I can see the reason. Let me give the devil's advocate argument first of all, because I think the argument for like TMV side of things is so obvious, right? I mean, Narrate used to play Fade. John used to play Sentinel. They were both really good. Why would you mess with that? But to give the devil's advocate argument here, I think it goes a little bit like this. So if you have Narrate playing right behind Zekken, what you're doing is you're front loading all of your like 1-2 punch. Your big aimers are right at the top of the pack. And so you're not getting this. There's a different way of trying to structure a team. And the other way of trying to structure the team is a little bit more like how EDG are currently structured, where you have Kang at the front, who draws huge amounts of pressure towards him. You have your initiators trying to set him up as well. And then you have Chishu, who's able to go and take his own timings. The Sentinel is a role where you're taking ones a lot of the time. So it's great for like star aimer kind of players. You're also able to influence the game massively too, because if you get a pick when you're on a like 4-1 default or whatever, the whole team can come back to you. You can secure all of that space yourself. It is a playmaking role. We've seen Alpha, yeah, we've seen Meteor. These are playmaking star roles, right? It's not some like, you know, throwaway IGL lurker role. These are
Not
roles that
shelving
you
your
can make.
player.
Right, exactly. And in some instances, you can actually have much more impact from the Sentinel role than you can from the Initiator role. And Narrate was actually a little bit of a weird Initiator player. He wasn't playing a lot of Sova and the slightly more passive roles. He was actually throwing out his fucking haunts and seizes and getting stuck into the mud. And I don't think that's what... I think Sentinels wanted to be able to play a little bit of a slower pace thing. And I think they're trying to get the value from Narrate when he develops into a player that they're hoping is going to be more like an Alphiera or a Meteor. I think that's what they're going for.
I agree
I think
with
it's
that.
totally fine.
I think I agree as well. I think it's fine. I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Everyone's trying to get something different from the off season, and they're just trying to try the roles out. And it's like what you were saying. It makes more sense for the IGL to be in the pack. If you're the sole, especially on attack, just put yourself in the shoes of the Sentinel on attack, right? Your team is 4-1ing somewhere, so the 4 are going here, and you're reacting as the 1. Most likely, what a lot of teams do is they push. So the last thing you want to be doing as the 1 is looking at the minimap, be like, oh, what my team doing? What do I need to make for the next call? When you're literally holding an angle, like you need to be full focus on your crosshair pretty much the whole time. And just when stuff's going on in the group, it's just easier to make like faster decisions. So it does just, in general, make more sense for your IGL to be on Initiator or Smokes, just because you're the ones that's like leading the group. You can drone in, you can smoke out. So I think this makes way more sense just because of roles. And I do feel like Saicho was saying, like playmaking, like if you think you got a timing, sometimes the IGL you don't want to take it, or you don't necessarily, this isn't a good example for Johns because he's a good aimer, but Narrate will like be wanting to take 1v1s that can potentially win the round and stuff like that. So I think with some time, it's going to be good. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think if this is what you're trying to get of the off season, it's a question that you lot had as a team. Like, should we be doing it? This is the best time to try it. And I don't think it looked too bad. They just went up against an NRG that are look insane after 2 weeks. Like, I don't think it looked too bad. And they lost against EG on Abyss, right? Where it's like the first time they were coming up against the Vice. So I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't be too worried, really. I think a lot of people were too worried about the NRG stuff when it was like, look at how good NRG were playing. It wasn't that bad at all. And then you just there was some sloppy stuff from Sentinels, but you kind of got to expect that. It's 2 new players and 2 new roles.
I'd say like this feels very similar to me with like the RQ shift that happened is what I'm trying to say. Jesus Christ. It happened earlier this year with like Elmi Moore and Xfero changing roles. Like they just did a 1-to-1 swap, and they were just like, well, this just felt better for us in scrims, and we felt like we are fitting these roles better than we previously were. And they did it, and initially it was a little bit puzzling, but then it worked out, and like RQ was still a really good team that was like very close to making a deeper run into playoffs and yada yada yada. They're doing this in the off season, which is when you should be doing this. So this is not the time for anybody to panic. It's not the time for anybody to question like what they're doing. Like they have the same coach, so like just have some faith. Like is basically the baseline of it. Just don't be stupid and don't jump to conclusions and panic.
Now I gave the devil's advocate argument because the devil paid me handsomely to do it. But I don't see the devil around, so I'm going to tell you what I really think. So, the devil's advocate argument, as I've laid out there, and Sliggy and Achilles seem to agree with, but I think when you look at the game in like what actually happened, I think the theory of this move is fine, and maybe it'll end up playing out like that. But the actual stuff that we're seeing in the game, I don't think you are getting that value from Narrate that you would have gotten had he been right behind Zek and running into and over people a lot. I think if you wanted short-term value from this roster, if you wanted to go out and win the SEN City Classic, I'm hard-pressed to believe that it wouldn't have been better to go and put Narrate on, Fade in a bunch of these maps. I mean, maybe not Haven, which is what we're showing here, but, getting him onto an Initiator, getting him playing really aggressively, maybe even having second place over in some of these and having Narrate play Duelist as well. So, but if you're going for like that short-term value, I think that it would have been better. I think that Narrate had some struggles to find his timings and his moments that like those top players that I'm talking about of Alpha, Meteor, etc. are really, really excellent at finding. That's going to come with time, but I don't think it's there at the moment. He doesn't look like he's an immediate natural on it, even though I have confidence he could get there. And I think John actually was the area that I was most concerned with, even though he does have experience playing Initiator, because I was noticing quite a lot of moments where it felt like he wasn't really sharp with it of like, oh, this is the piece of utility I need to be using because my team needs to take this space. This is how I need to be repositioning for my team to be able to get here. He's like occasionally using a recon dart a bit too early, so now that you don't have one for the retake, he's like using it to clear an angle instead of realizing this is a key piece of utility I need to be holding on to. So these are the things that I actually think that it's going to take a lot of work to get that going. Do I think it's possible that they can get to a spot where they would have been better this way around? Yeah, because like I said, I think the devil's advocate, like the theory, I think makes sense, but I don't think it was there in their games. And one thing that worries me is because you've got rid of 10s, you actually do need somebody else to be up there being aggressive and being a playmaker with Zekken. And unless Narrate is going to do that very heavily from the Cypher role, who is that going to be? Bang plays for clutches a lot. He's not a 10s. He's not running in, making mad plays during the middle of rounds. He's amazing in the clutch, though, and he was fantastic in the clutch during this tournament. But Zelsis isn't really that either. Zelsis could try to play more aggressively, but he's not a powerhouse fragger. And I don't know whether John's going to do that either, because while his fragging's good, I don't see him as being a particularly aggressive player at all, even on Initiator. So I am a little bit concerned that the group that they've got around Zekken in the pack, if you think about that idea of the theoretical 4-1 default, it's just going to end up being a bit of Zekken and friends, of like load Zekken in, hope that he gets the entries and makes a lot of space for us to be able to trade people out. And if the teamwork all works really, really well, we can have a lot of success with that. It doesn't. If Zekken's having an off day or if they shut Zekken down, I think it's going to be a lot tougher with Narrate on the Cypher to fix some of those executes than it would have been if Narrate is playing the like Fade on Bind, Gecko on Bind, something like that, where he can run in as Verno does in these kind of situations and just blaze down too. So I do think there's pros and cons to this. I'm not actually decided either way. I can see the theory and I can appreciate it, but I think there's a lot of challenges still to work out.
There's a lot that, you know, as far as like the reasoning for this could be. Like it could be just, yeah, let's try this, you know, this is your old role. Let's try pivoting back to it. Maybe this is going to be more longevity. It could be John saying, hey, I think I should play this role again. And Kaplan just going, yeah, all right, sure. If you come out here and you drop 30 every game, I'll let you pivot back. Let's see what happens. And then it's like, okay, no, never mind. Back to back to jail with you. There's a lot, but I trust the system there. I think that just given, you know, the previous season for Sentinels, it'd be stupid to doubt them and think that they're doing something just objectively wrong with their setup.
Yeah, it's. I do want to point out it's nowhere near as bad as when Finesse went over to playing Sky and put Crashies onto Viper for like the NRG turnaround. I've seen a lot of people making that same comparison. It's not as bad as putting like Sassy on Viper and having Def play Sky. We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Yeah, the Sen fans have got a little bit of like PTSD, I think, just from having the whole tail end of their season being hijacked by the double Sentinel comps and not seeing value of it.
They need a reason to believe. Tens is retired. They need something to believe in.
Yeah. But the Sentinels, I think, like Cap knows better than anyone that the off season is not there for winning. It's there for testing. You're playing to improve. You're not playing to win.
And if you win, that's just a bonus.
Yeah, this is what I mean. This is why everyone looks at the off season, and you gotta look at it team by team. What are they trying to get out of it? Sentinels last year wanted to win because they were trying to prove to themselves and us, similar to NRG right now, that they can do it and they should be sticking with these 5. It was similar to NRG because it's like FNS wants to come out and get the confidence with the team. You've got tier 2 players that they need the confidence, and him in general just needs the confidence to be like, yeah, I can do this. I am like one of the best IGLs and I can frag heavy. And Sentinels just aren't in that spot anymore. It's the let's try this. Is this the best way to approach next year? How do we want to approach next year? They don't need to go out and win stuff. They don't need to prove to anyone that they can do that. It's more just what are the best roles for everything at the moment. We could do this. Let's try it. Let's see how it looks. They got options. It's good.
Judge them after the SVL.
Yeah, I would
nothing
say that.
else. They have like when there's other off-season tournaments ahead.
When is SVL?
December 9th
right?
to the
Mid-December?
15th. Yeah, I just looked at the date.
So that's
9th to the 15th.
When does the season begin again? Didn't they say they wanted it to start in
January.
January.
16th or 17th for January, yeah.
So that's
something
only a
around
month before the season's beginning. So yeah, you're starting to get really close at that point.
Yeah,
And people
so
are
judge
probably
them
going to take a
then.
winter break.
It's the last off-season tournament they're going to play in all likelihood, unless there's some one-off like 2-day thing that they have.
Yeah.
Like, Christmas Classic, SEN Christmas Classic. I don't know, but like.
Rob Moore flies out and gives Sentinels mouse
Save it for
mouse
there.
to everybody. Every child
Yeah.
in America gets a Sen mouse.
Yep, everybody gets a stocking, and it's all just got a gift code for the SEN Classic in it.
The pushing
Okay. Should we move on to our investigative journalism portion of the show?
Oh yes.
We go
have
through
one
this.
of
We
those?
wear many different hats on Plat Chat. Once you remember, we were investigating the fraud with bits in the Turkish Twitch ring. That was back in 2021.
Never got resolved, by the way.
Never got resolved. Yeah, that did not get
CNET's
resolved.
evil twin brother just running a fucking fraudulent bits ring.
Yeah.
No ramifications.
This time around, Karmine Corp found apparently they're having like some disagreements and alleging fraud against some disagreements within the ownership group of Karmine Corp, saying that they're like misusing, I think, Karmine Corp revenue. I kind of skimmed over the article, and also it's in French, so I don't.
Well, I translated it with Google Translate. I'm not fluent in French.
So,
But this is a great
I
article.
read it in French just like I read Les Miserables in French. Didn't understand a fucking thing, but they sang really well.
the secret war of the bosses of the Karmine Corp.
Yeah, first of all,
the gist
do you want
was
me to
what?
give you
Like
the
that
lowdown?
yeah, give me the lowdown, because my lowdown is skim reading. You read the full article.
I did, yeah. And also the one that was posted to the competitive Valorant subreddit was a summary of this article. So I don't know
Right.
whether most people have seen the original, which is this, which is like some investigative journalism that's done by Review. So first of all, the headline makes it sound like Kameto, who is the main guy behind it, is committing fraud. That's not the case. The idea is that there's a co-founder who was using Kameto's company to funnel his own lifestyle. So it's the two founders locking heads about this. This is not Karmine Corp defrauding fans or anything like that. But it's interesting, and it's blown up on like French Twitter and Portuguese, like Brazilian as well, because Sadak's going over to Karmine Corp too. Because it's interesting. People love this kind of stuff. So the idea is that when Karmine Corp was first founded, it was originally called Kameto Corp, and it was just Kameto. And then they added this other guy who had been involved in... he was a YouTuber rather than a Twitch streamer. And his name's Amin. So they added Amin to the name and made it Karmine Corp. So that's how the actual big company ended up being structured. They had this big company, Karmine Corp, and then two smaller companies underneath it, one run by each of the founders. And the allegations are that the guy who got brought in later on, Amin, was taking some of the money that the esports organization was generating, so merchandise sales and that kind of thing, and was using that and kind of pulling that into his own company to live his own private, like, extravagant lifestyle, because his own side of the company was not generating the same level of revenue as the Karmine Corp esports side was, which has been fantastically successful. I mean, one of the most successful organizations recently, like, completely. The reason this is blown up right now, by the way, is because Karmine Corp are running their big event right now, KCX4, which is where they go into La Défense or whatever other arena, depending on the year, and they pack it with like 30,000 fans, and they all turn up to watch all of the Karmine Corp teams play. It's a fantastic event. Shouldn't really be any reason for this to affect it either, because all of this is reporting on stuff that happened 2 years ago and has allegedly been resolved by this businessman that they brought in to kind of professionalize things. And he is now, you know, essentially taking what was like a passion project and trying to make it something where interpersonal relationships between like people that you trust don't fuck the entire thing up. So, like, for example, Bren starts embezzling funds away from Plat chat,
which
and
has
then
happened.
and then we go off and hire, I don't know, Rob Moore or something comes in to try to straighten the place out, and he's like, "What is your business? It's built like a bunch of amateurs," and we're like, "Yeah, we were amateurs when we built the business. Actually, it's built
And
shockingly."
what would the suggestion be? We must crowdfund funding from our community.
Well, no,
Memberships?
Well, yeah, we should do that, absolutely.
Yeah,
but he
wait a
just
second.
restructured the company so that there was a lot more transparency in what was going on, and made sure that the founders were fixed in, you know, their roles, responsibilities, etc.
Sure.
If we get 100 members during the remainder of this episode, Bren is going to embezzle funds from Plat Chat. So make sure to join.
Dude, I've already been doing that. They haven't caught me yet. They don't know that I'm running the finances. They don't know. They don't know that I'm running the finances. I mean, yeah, not much more then to really say on to that. If it was 2 years, I didn't realize it was 2 years ago, and it's essentially
pretty much
resolved. But yeah, I
this
guess
is like one of the most amicable fraud cases that I've ever seen in my life, though, because it's widely been silently continuing. And to have something like this without a massive public blow up is kind of unprecedented, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why it hasn't publicly blown up is because essentially they're stealing from the company rather than stealing from consumers, right? The consumer is getting what they asked for. It's not fraud in that same sense. And I think what's been going on, the subtext of the article is that Kameto actually used this fact that his co-founder was, it's not even subtext actually, they explicitly say it. So because they realized the co-founder was committing fraud, Kameto used that opportunity to solidify control of the company much more around himself. So he's now much more taken over. He's the face of it, whereas previously they were the two faces of it. He also invested more capital into the company, which diluted the shares of his co-founder. So his co-founder now owns less of the company because as you put more money in, you can keep the same amount of shares, but they're worth less. And so he's essentially done like he's taken the opportunity to do a bit of a takeover of the company and make it more of a one-man show, right? And so that's the reason why I think a lot of this has stayed under wraps, is because in the end it actually benefited the guy that was being defrauded.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's him.
And it was Sadak all along.
Well, yeah, hopefully it doesn't affect them because Karmine Corp, I don't know, I fuck with them being in the league. They're a good org to get to have in. I don't think Riot are going to rock the boat. It takes quite a bit for Riot to actually have a heavy hand against any orgs.
Shot.
Yeah, there's no way any orgs or players, to be honest.
Makes sense.
Exactly. Let's shift it along. I mean, we're already quite into the episode. This topic here, this has been circulating. Pro players obviously talking a lot about Neon the last few months. And Zekken posted this tweet. Which was relating to like talking about the old chamber meta and Neon currently making bad players good. And 2 years down the line, people are going to go, it was actually a unique and diverse meta to play in. Do we agree with this take? Is because the chamber meta was just homogenized, same comps on almost every single map. Like you're not changing shit. Like that, it was dominance from what I remember, what I recall. It was like you would chop and change maybe one role and position, but you're largely playing the same stuff on every single map. We're seeing
Your controller. Like,
there's a lot more diversity here with Neon, in this Neon meta, where some teams don't even opt into running the Neon.
Wait a second, is that true? Because I remember chamber meta also being where people were playing like triple initiator comps on Ascent,
Am I
triple
crazy?
initiator. Like, I think that with the passage of time, people tend to remember old metas as being, it was the same 5 agents on every single map.
Because that's what I remember.
I think this
That was
gets
when-
used as a straw man too much. I want to see some fucking evidence.
I
if people are
remember
gonna bring that up.
Astra, Viper, Chamber, just like...
I remember DRX running triple initiator on like Ascent in that meta,
yeah.
but also
became
that's
kind of popular.
Ascent, so it's like a little bit hard to say like.
I remember a lot of people running Breach Fade Chamber on Haven. I remember that being a very defined meta. That,
Yeah,
like,
with Raze.
yeah, that it eventually ended up.
It was just like after a certain amount of time, people started leaning towards like something that was meta. It's similar to like when 100 Thieves found the bind comp this year. It was like more and more teams started to do that. We probably haven't seen enough teams use like the Neon. Really, we're still starting to see like some teams realize that like the Fade's crazy good with the Neon from Sempra, so they pretty much made that popular, and then Sentinel started doing it on Pearl. I think here would look pretty good when they're like sending the Prowler in. You slide at the same time. You're sliding, so like the Prowler blocks your bullets. So even if you're headshotting someone, the Prowler's just tanking it all. Yeah, it's so stupid. So that kind of stuff's like a little bit busted. So I feel like the more it goes on, the more you'll see like similar comps become meta. It's like the only agent that is busted at the moment, really. I mean, to be honest, I think Chamber's still busted, but we won't go into that again. I just think that's where it is. But I think that, yeah, the more you see Neon get played, the more teams will be like, wait, this is ridiculously strong. And you'll start seeing like Neon, Breach, Fade. I think are like the three that really, I feel like that trio is disgusting. So
I also think that it's not necessarily as okay. It would be really important if the same 5 agents were played on every single map. That would be really bad for the game. But I think it's possible to have a bad meta where there is still quite a lot of diversity going on. And I think the reason that it would be bad is because when you play a Neon comp, so much of it just revolves around the Neon being able to get away with stuff that doesn't feel engaging to the people playing against it. And I'm coming at this a bit more from a ranked perspective now than from a pro perspective. But I think the issue that I have with Neon in its current form is that it kind of focuses, or it takes like the sum total of fun that's in the game and it puts such a disproportionate amount in the Neon player, and it leeches it away from the people playing against the Neon. And I think that that is one of the big issues. Not really whether Neon gets played like every single map. It's not that people are bored of seeing Neon. They're angry about playing against it.
Yeah.
It is no fun. Like, it is no fun. And I think that's like some of the stuff in pro play. There isn't much to counter it, really. It's so fluid at getting out of stuff. Like, I know a lot of people say cypher trips, but as soon as you get hit by the cypher trip and you just actually dash out, you don't get pinged back for a while and your teammate shot it if you're good in like pro play. So it's like you kind of, the agent's just too, like when we're seeing people that have fully mastered it, it is similar to a chamber meta where it just takes over it. And it's like, no matter what util you put there, like they can just hold on to their TP and then get a shot and then TP away. It's similar to that. It's like they are so good at, like, oh, I've been stunned, sure, I just stun back. Oh, there's a trip here, I'll slide, my teammate's going to shoot it, I'm in a different position. Like, there's so little that you can do against it.
Should they be rewarded for that? Considering that we're not talking about all pro Neons are able to do this, by the way. Even people that are really trying to play Neon as their full-time duelist, there is still a pretty massive skill gap between the pro Neon and the, like, oh my god, you're incredible Neon. You know, you're like Zekans, people like Jorgamo, Dumby, these kind of people. There is still a gap between it. It's not like every bad player turns into a good player. Should they be rewarded for that? It does have skill expression.
Yeah, I agree, but you could do the same with Chamber. It's still a busted agent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it's still busted. Like, you gotta give props to Ye. Like, Ye had the aim to make Chamber insane. Like, he was the one that was one tapping non-stop with the Sheriff. He was the guy that would tank 5 bits of util and still get a shot off. Like,
everyone else had the exact same chamber, and he was still head and shoulders better than everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just you want to try and level majority of the agents out. It's just too high up there. It's at the highest level. It's at the highest level. It's incredible. And then you combine that with something that's a little bit off kilter, like the Bucky, like left click's a little bit too strong, and it just makes a recipe for disaster.
Oh my God.
I also think that Neon is worse than Chamber for the ranked player base, because in the pro level, Neon's when you're an amazing aimer, it's just absurd the advantage that you get, similar to Chamber. But when you're at the low level, no motherfuckers can aim anyway, and they definitely can't aim at someone sliding across your screen. So it's like, it's also a pub stomper that, like, the lower down you get, the harder it is to counter, and it's also fairly easy to get value from it. So it works at both levels of game, so that every single rank in the game, you're getting a rough experience playing against a Neon. They don't have to have incredible aim, because it scales. Like, you're worse at countering it when you're lower down in the levels as well.
Yeah.
Did we just run the Damby clip from him playing
we
the
just
Bucky
did.
on...
Way ahead of you.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We just did.
It was running in the background.
I had to use the restroom, so I stepped away. But yep, there you go.
I'm
I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Seth. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this just kind of feels like similar game design to what, like, we have gone through in, like, League of Legends as well on that side, where you just get a character and sometimes they're just so face rolly that, like, anybody with a modicum of skill can just destroy. And then if you're in, like, gold rank or lower, you're just absolutely fucked if you play against somebody with a bit of talent, like, behind them, because the character itself, like, just it lends itself to talent, like, really loosely compared to a lot of other agents.
Can we pull up the second tweet, though? Because I want to ask you all a question. And it's about the very first part of Zekan's tweet. Neon, let's ignore all Chamber. Neon makes bad players good. Now, we've got 4 people here that I would not consider to be good players, right? Like, even, you know, Sliggy's got a decent rank. Motherfucker abuses the judge and the Odin like nobody's business.
True.
Like, I'm a bad player. I have a negative KD, and I've climbed to Immortal 1 this season. That's terrible.
That's not
like,
I have a positive KD, I think, when I was last playing ranked, and like a 40% win rate.
Right.
currently.
So all of us have got our failings somewhere. Can any of us actually pick up Neon and dominate with it? Because I can't. I've tried, and I'm poo. I'm too poo. I'm too bad for Neon.
I absolutely suck. I've tried playing Neon, and I just blow when I play Neon. Like, it's so bad. But I've played against, like, players of a similar level that are still quite good, like Binbon in particular. I'll shout him out, like one of the Korean commentators. Like he plays Neon. He's like, not Radiant, but he's like up there, and he's a really good player. And I've played against his Neon, and the dude, and this was like even pre accuracy on the first bullet, and he was destroying me when we would play in houses, and I was just so frustrated. I think you have to be a halfway decent player. I think that Zekken is using hyperbole by saying bad player. I don't think you could take somebody who's complete ass and then have them have a glow up and gain, +1, +1.5 ranks, whatever.
When are they going to release an agent like that? Because that's what
that's
what I need, bro.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's not something where it's just like, oh yeah, just auto lock Neon and then you'll gain rank. Like, you have to have a brain. You have to understand your timings. You have to understand like when you can do things, what utility you need to be throwing at a given moment. You have to know like relay bolt lineups. You also have to just have good aim and be really snappy with your stuff, or else you're going to be ass and you're just going to feed. Because a sliding Neon who can't aim is actually just fodder. Like, we can't play against Neons who know how to aim when they slide. But if it's a Neon and they don't know what the fuck they're doing when they're sliding, it's just wood for the fire, basically.
Yeah. The tweet is not aimed at us, basically. No. It's aimed at like
But he's saying this half-rate player who otherwise wouldn't have a shot or wouldn't look as good as they do, like that's kind of where that's directed.
I think the point he's making is like it depends on what you put on value on as a player. And Zekken, we know, can play a variety of roles. But there's a lot of players whose entire career has been defined by playing in a meta where they only had to play one role. But on every single map. And I think that's a distinction. Now, obviously, Twitter as a platform does not allow any nuance with your takes when you throw them out in less than 140 characters or whatever the fuck it is. So
unless you're subscribed to Twitter.
I have and if you do that, I'm sending you off to the island. Stop giving the billionaire money. I understand what he's getting at completely with this point, which is when you have your role essentially decided for you, defined for you, you can be really good on that one particular position. But as soon as the meta shifts, your value as a player goes down because you haven't had the experience of being able to actually play other stuff. And we've seen that case in point. I think that's why he put in Old Chamber.
It's just a definition of one tricks. That's it. And that used to fly a while ago, and this is like the first time for a while that we've seen it where you can probably get away with it because you could play on every map.
I saw you, Slicky, while you were doing a co-stream. I tried to tune into the SEN City Classic, but the delays, I was like, nah, I'm watching the VODs of these things. But one of the things that I tuned in and you were talking about was Neon. I think it was when Zekken got his ace in like the very first map of the tournament. I think he's running around with Neon ult, and he gets an ace when they're retaking over towards Pearl on A. And you said, I originally thought that Neon was going to get nerfed after the first Masters event. Now I feel like the more we're watching these off-season tournaments, the more it's gonna, the player base is gonna get riled up. They're gonna start talking about it. Then it's gonna trickle down to the fans. They're gonna start talking about it. We're talking about it now as well. Do you, at the end of this tournament, feel the same way that you've shifted your mind to like Neon should be nerfed before the season begins now?
Yeah, I think they'll do a little tweak that won't be huge. Like originally, I was so sure it was gonna be first Masters. We saw the teams doing it, but now I think like December we get some kind of change. I just think it's too good. The ult just melts too fast. We see too many crazy things, and the thing that is like heavily underrated is players complaining. Like players complaining has worked in the past, and the more the people are vocal, the faster it's going to change.
Do you think the players realize that if they complain super heavily, they're going to get the same scenario that they got last season, where Sky got nerfed right before, and everyone complained about that?
No, but
there is no perfect here.
No, I agree. But then that's why you need to have just like the smallest tweak, where it's not like a tweak where it's like completely wrecked. It's more just like the ult does slightly less headshot damage, or like you're inaccurate during like the middle of your slide, or something that's like just a little bit small that kind of just brings it down. And it can still be a Neon meta. It needs to not be this busted. And I think that's probably how they'll do it. And then maybe after the Masters, if it's still super strong, then they'll do something a bit bigger. But,
so that's what I was going to ask, is not to add too much more to the episode, but like if we could all make one change to Neon that we think would bring her in line, what is that one change that you would make?
Mine would probably be the ult, even though it's either the ult damage or it's the sliding accuracy.
I would do the slide speed. That's what I would do.
Make the slide slower.
Part of the issue is, yeah, I mean, I know that's literally like part of the whole. She already has insane movement if you're good at just the like B hopping, like in the game, in terms of like B hopping and like backward slides and everything else. You're already really hard to hit. When you add in the speed at which you can slide, online it gets amplified heavily because you've already got Pika's advantage online, and when you add in the slide and your hitbox is contorted in a different angle, there's no way anybody's going to be ready for you. They just have to spray and get lucky, or they have to like adjust and flick. It's an impossibility to kill a Neon. I think that's part of the reason why she's so dominant right now, in my opinion. At LAN, it's not really too much of an argument, but I think that capacity of her kit is what makes her super, super good, is just how much movement she gets. She can fast rotate. She gets 2 slides. It's like it's all a little bit.
Are you talking about
much.
her general speed or her slide speed?
Just the slide speed. I think the general speed, because we have a lot of. I think if you nerf those aspects, she still get play because 1, people have been putting time onto her, and 2, the map pool actually has some of the biggest maps still in the pool. Like with Pearl coming in and Abyss now, like as a
still high value.
These maps are massive, like rotation timings. Like if you play in Neon, like it's the reason, part of the reason my teams also run Yoru, I guess, on Abyss, is that you can actually play for fast rotation timings. It makes a big difference.
Yeah,
but,
I like the idea of nerfing the slide speed, because I think one of the things that's really good about current Neon that makes her fit the niche that she currently occupies is that she can gap close without just feeding. And if you nerf the accuracy of the slide, when you slide in, you can't take a fight. It doesn't matter like what you do to the accuracy. I mean, unless you make it very slightly less accurate, and then people are just going to be mad that it's hitting the shots. If you make it like it's running accuracy or walking accuracy or something like that, people are not going to be sliding in shooting, because why would you set it up so that you then have to reset your spray when you actually try to take the fight? So you just would get rid of that entire part of the kit. And I think that is really actually crucial for her being a dive agent that's gonna get playtime, because she has to compete with stuff like Jet in order to be useful.
Then you just do 1 slide. Like if that's what you want to do, then you just do 1 slide.
Yeah, you could do that.
You have to think about it. This is the thing. It's like, as long as something happens, I don't care. It can be 1 slide. It can be the ult. It can be accuracy. Like it just needs something. There's something small. Like one slide would mean they have to think about it more.
Yeah, I think
like
if you're going to keep it 2 slides, you should make it so that when she slides the first time, she breaks her left ankle.
Okay,
and then she slows down. And then when she breaks her right ankle, she basically can't walk anymore, and you become immobile.
Mm-hmm.
And then
if you play with the Killjoy on your team, you're able to actually form a wheelchair out of the turret, and you can push the Neon around.
You crawl on, you crawl on top of it.
If you play with a breach, you can make her you can rip off the breach arm and attach it as a leg, and she just kind of runs around that.
She's just Voltron now, is basically what she is. No, I honestly, I think even just like maybe removing headshot damage from her ult would help kind of keep her in line a lot, because then at least you have like a much less reliable, eco situation where like you have to be a lot more choosy about when you're using your ultimate. You have to be a lot more on point. You can't just kill somebody in half a second, because you can just go on somebody's face like that, which that's going to be taken out of context, but it's fine. So just, I think that like that as a change might potentially be quite good, but I don't know.
All right. I have faith that they will make some changes. I don't know. I spoke to the people in charge, like especially Penguin, who's got a heavy hand in terms of balance, and they're always trying to consider what's unfun to play against, like in terms of if there's no counterplay, which is, back when they, nerfed Razor's movement, it's not fun for the Razors, not fun to watch Razors be slower, but it was very annoying holding the back of truck on bind and you're dead because there's a fucking raise in your face from barrier down with a judge. Like that's not fun to play against, right? And it's those aspects of the game, but they are thinking about it. So that's why I have faith, even though they've been slow to the mark. We have a few more topics. Yeah, we have a few more topics. I don't know if we want to go over this next one, but I guess we can run through it, which is another pro play take, which is Ye's opinion about agent bans, thinking that the game's in a good enough spot right now to maybe even incorporate agent bans. Now, I'm firmly against agent bans personally. I think you get a lower quality of play in that way. I'm I'm not a huge fan of being able to ban away a team's preparation, especially in a game like Valorant. I think the skill floor gets lowered, just like the skill floor I felt like was overall lower because teams couldn't prep as much, just with the tighter turnaround of the season this year. And I think you would end up with a lower quality of play overall if you had agent bans. But maybe there's an argument. I don't know. Like he's throwing up as an argument against stale metas, right? Which is coming off the Neon point. But at that point, why don't you just nerf the characters?
Yeah, I think it's in a reaction because some of the agents are a little bit busted, right, with the Neon. But the more I think about it, the more I'm not like fully against it. It changes a hell of a lot. This is the thing in terms of prep, how people approach the game, coaches, players. Like it pretty much changes the game massively, team wise. Like it would be giant.
Talent apparently just goes to the top of the global standings because Frost has 4 compositions for every single map. So like they're completely ban immune. So it's a massive.
Do you not think
shakeup.
that would just be the end result? Is that people prep like?
Oh, I think you would have to.
A number,
just one and dones.
Yeah, just one and dones, and you just get a lot of.
That stuff can be fun.
It can be fairly fun.
I think it would be good for the entertainment factor. I don't know if it would be good for the longevity of the game as a competitive game. Is I think my primary concern.
So much harder for viewers to try to like keep track of which teams are actually good when you're looking at a game and you're like, oh well, it's just because they hadn't happened to prep their Viperless split that week. They were expecting Rays to be banned. We prepped a Neon comp and a Jet comp, but
it does. Yeah. It means it becomes more ranked. Like it will definitely feel like a lot more ranked. But I think like after a while, teams would prep pretty well for it, and it wouldn't be too bad. But yeah, it's a weird one. I've spoken to Wyatt about this before. I've spoken to CS organizers, Overwatch. I really strongly think that all of these kind of ideas, just put them all into one off-season event, invite like 4 teams, get everyone's feedback, and you just try everything that people have. Where it's like, let's do one ban for agents. Let's see how the players like it. All orbs, you don't get them for planting, you don't get them for diffusing. Observing, you do delayed observing, which again I've tried to do for 10 plus years, and it's the best way esports will be watched, and it kind of changes everything, and it's the best experience you can literally have watching the game, and no one's tried it. Like we should just be trying all of this stuff.
OGN used to do it.
We did do it in TF2.
That was the standard in TF2, was a 90-second delay actually, so the observers caught everything.
But that was the trouble, was that it left no room.
You can't have morons. I've done first of all, when I heard about this, I thought it was shit, and then I practiced it for like a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is the future. You just need to make sure that it's not a moron controlling it, because then it's like you do 5-second delay, you see what happens on your second monitor, and it's like overview into the action, but you still keep up with the same observing things, where it's like people are rushing a site. I go, even though I know the defender dies here, I go to the defender. Like that's the person that has to do it, or you keep to the strict rules, and it makes the best shit you've ever seen. And no one wants to do it in esports. I nearly got blasted to do it, and then COVID happened, and I switched. It's so sick.
OGN was doing this forever ago. They were doing it in Apex. They were doing it in League of Legends.
That was how they caught the player reaction cams, like live.
Exactly, because they knew when they could snap to a full screen of the player reaction cams, because we didn't actually have monitor mounted like cameras in OGN. It was a dude on stage with a giant fucking camera, and he was told zoom player 3, and then he just did it and had the shot ready, and then they had the player reaction, and they would run it after the play was done. That's how OGN dominated esports. But similar to OGN's story, we have just kind of regressed in a lot of things that they were doing incredibly well.
The problem is a couple of people like tried to do it, and they were just like, look at how many extra kills we got, and it's like, you guys are just morons. You're just trying to use it so it gets kills. And then just everyone high up in esports, man, especially when I look at Overwatch, I'm just speaking to absolute idiots. They just don't know what they're doing. So dude, I'm telling you,
we live that.
I've been in esports for a long time. The 2 biggest idiots I've ever met is in Overwatch, man. My goodness, I'm not naming them.
You're not naming them?
I'm not naming them.
Can I guess them?
I'm not saying anything if you guess them. I'm not saying anything.
So the answer is yes, but he won't confirm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
to talk Asian bans for a second as well. I feel like the interesting part about Asian bans are when you have a game system that doesn't allow you to have a mirror match anyway. Like a lot of the games where I feel like Asian bans are interesting is where you're only allowed one of them in the match to even begin with. The fact that we have, if you had one agent ban per side, you could still have 8 of the exact same agents in the map. And then there's only 2 changes based on, subbing out something that works in a similar way. I don't think not only does it add a lot of these extra, like, why are we doing this? But I don't think it even fixes the problem. I think you have to come at this from a meta balance perspective. And I actually think you've got some of the best devs for being proactive about that. It's just that they tend to allow things to go for a tournament and for like a meta, and then they fix things, and people want it to be even shorter, even though, dude, a neon meta lasting for like one tournament is fine. We'll remember it. We'll get over it.
People want devs to be fucking precogs. Like they want them sitting in a vat of slime, pale as shit, hooked up to some wiring, just going like, neon is going to be fucked, and they fix it before it's even happened. Like they want Minority Report as devs, and it's not possible. So like, yeah, you're gonna get hit with metas where it lasts a little bit longer than you think is comfortable, but for the most part, Valorant's been pretty good about it because we haven't had our goats. Like that's not something that's happened. We're not as bad as we were in 2018 into 19 in Overwatch. So like it's okay if something stagnates a little bit, especially when it's mostly in the off season.
Pretty much as well. It's like something's always broken in the game. Like you just gotta use it and accept it, and then it gets balanced. So I don't know, but again, it's one of those things where it's like we don't really know until we see a tournament. So some kind of off-season tournament where you try stuff would be awesome, because it could be one of those things where we think it's awful, but actually everyone's like, hold up, this was pretty hype.
We experimented with it. They ran it at EWC Overwatch, and it was a neat thing. And we weren't sure if it was going to get implemented into the rest of the Overwatch season. It didn't. But for like a just kind of like let's try something new type deal, it was neat. But it's also a very different game compared to Valorant. Like you can change characters on the fly in Overwatch. So banning one away,
banning
it's very different compared to that. I actually kind of lean more with Josh, where I think that if you have a game where you're doing a draft and you can't have the same agents on the same team, like that's more interesting compared to just banning one, but then everybody can still play the same thing, at the same time.
But then it's
so we just have to go with the original LCK system where like you were drafting, but then you get to a game 5, and then you do blind pick, and everybody can actually have matching agents on each side.
Yeah, I think it would only ever work with just one ban, and anything else is just way too much, or just like one pick each.
You should be able to pick the comp that your opponents play. But like both teams can pick what your opponents play.
Yeah,
so like you try to pick the most troll comp in the world, and they are trying to pick the most troll comp for you.
That'd be really good.
Yeah, that'd be a cool tourney.
let's just ban roles. Actually, fuck it. Let's just say you can't play controllers, and then you have to just build an entire comp around that.
Slicky was prepping for that tournament already.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. I've got the strats for it. Actually, I think I'm ready.
Let's move on. We're getting close to the end of the show now. Let's talk about the tournament that's upcoming, which is Game Changers Champs as well. It's going to be starting on Friday. It's like 2 days from now. And that's in Berlin, so it's a good time zone for pretty much everybody to watch as well. It's a hell of a tournament because they're only doing like 1 day break, I think, and they're starting with some 3-match days as well. So it's going to be a lot of Valorant in a very short amount of time, but it's bound to be good. Usually, I mean, every year as well. It's always pretty good as well. If you starve the Valorant as well at this point, we're eating pretty good in this off season. I won't lie. Like we've had some good events, but always worth a watch. Now you're gonna be close streaming it, Sliggy? You're gonna be watching us?
Yeah, I'm gonna be close streaming, and once I go to the event on the 14th, 15th, I think it is, maybe even 16th. Yeah. I can't remember the dates. And then if you watch my stream, you get a title, the Queen title. So if you want to be repping that, go to my Twitch and watch on the final days.
So it's only on the final days.
Only on the final days, yeah.
And that goes into the game. That goes in. That's a title. Like,
That's in game.
Valorant.
Yeah, it's something new that they're doing. So it's for the 4 co-streamers that they have. So I think they're just
Super sick.
experimenting with this. For
The
something in
whole of the
future.
Slug Club better be representing Queen.
The Queen, yeah.
Oh, dude,
kinda
Queen
sick.
Slug, let's go.
I like that. That's nice. That's
Yeah,
very, very cool.
It's really cool. So I'm excited to I'm excited to have the opportunity to do this. It should be sick.
Why does it look like you have a unibrow?
Yeah. What's going on there?
I mean, it also looks like just the Queen of Fisting. What is that emote? That's like, that's a great. There's so much force and vigor in that punch.
Okay.
Also,
I think of vigor, I think of fisting, of course.
Extra plug. I think Minnie's coming on my stream as well, though. So
Oh,
me and Minnie co-streaming.
From the
like
never
at the
mind.
event. Excuse me. Where are you gonna go with that?
Didn't finish it. Didn't
Oh,
finish
okay,
it.
cool, then it's all good.
Yeah. Normally we would be in a position to maybe do a preview of this one, but I think all of the talent that are working game changers that we would, that normally would come on to preview the event, they're all working, they're all flying, they're already there. So it's kind of rough to do an episode around, and we're not gonna lie to you as well.
When we
So,
do an episode next week, anyway,
yeah,
that's gonna be like halfway. That's gonna be like halfway through. So I don't know if people are planning to watch, but we could certainly try to find some guests that are that are following what's going on, so that we can do an episode around game changers.
Yeah, Minnie's been following a lot. He's been like watching all the regions. He'd be good for it.
Yeah.
all right, cool.
My queen.
My queen. Let's finish it up. Let's wrap the episode up now as well with Wyatt's weekly award, the most important award of all time ever.
I gotta get this weekly award to the compound. Oh shit, they're on my ass.
I love this one because it's one that's broken in half on the page.
Yep. Got to get to the compound. The compound's been blown up. That Wyatt does not know that. He does not know that we're missing the compound anymore. But the Wyatt's weekly award this week, big news that came out here from the DRX camp as well, which is Termy got married. Congratulations. There always got to be a lock-in whenever somebody gets married for the Wyatt's weekly award. Always. Got to be a lock. Congratulations. No invite to us, probably because we spent 6 months, I think, shit
Yeah, I
talking
was
and
gonna
coaching with
say.
DRX.
Yeah.
was there.
But that's
Wish
fine.
him the best, though.
Yeah, wish him the best. No hard feelings from our end, our side
I
of
wasn't
things.
actually
Honestly,
there. I didn't get
congratulations.
invited. I just wanted to act like I was.
Such a strange way of delivering an award.
No,
No
listen,
hard
I'm happy
feelings
for
on
him.
our end.
I'm happy.
It's
for
a
him.
bit of a hollow crown for Termy
I'm happy
coming
for
from
him.
this camp, but you know.
When you get married, you realize actually that Valorant doesn't matter at all. So it's like the pressure's off you. I'm talking like a man who's.
I disagree.
Yeah, I'm saying that like I'm already married. Alice is like, why are you
Oh,
saying
no.
that like you've been married before?
I disagree, and I think that you will realize that you're also incorrect, Brent, because if you know, when you get married, you're going to realize, oh, this is what I have, and I need to provide. So
Right,
Valorant
so-
matters way more than you ever
Yeah,
possibly
most
had
importantly.
contemplated previously to that
But no
point.
crypto
So-
gambling.
When you look in
Yeah.
the mirror on a morning and your mortality stares back at you in the face, that's when you realize that Valorant doesn't matter. That's when you realize that you've let your body become a soft shell of meaty flesh that barely hangs on to support what's going on inside, and you probably should look after it a little bit
Mentally, I'm there.
Even then, all right, look, Josh. How's your days? How you been?
Mentally, I'm there.
more. No, I'm just saying, like, obviously I haven't felt that way ever. I'm just,
No,
No, of
I'm
course
just
not.
like, talking in a.
I was just saying what I think
abstract
other
sense.
people probably felt, but you know, like I've never felt that way. Like,
Well, congratulations to Terry. Let's wrap this one up. Thank you very much, Sliggy, Seth, Josh, for joining us as well. And thank you for watching if you have been watching. Thank you for members. If you are a member, if you've been giving us money as well, make sure you join the Discord, the members-only Discord. You can ask questions, and we'll answer them wholeheartedly with our soul and our chest and all of our being. And Josh will write you a poem for the next episode too, of how much he enjoys that you're all.
just put that out there. Nice.
Thank you very
A
much.
limerick.
for
Let's say a
watching.
limerick.
Yes,
Well,
a
limericks
limerick.
are easy. I can whip up a limerick. Don't worry.
Yeah, 10-line limerick.
How am I even going to fit that in the format?
Thank you
I
for
don't know.
watching episode 194, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.